Welcome to the Occult Rejects. This episode, I got I'm already fucking up. We got a returning guest. He's been on the show a few times, and a lot of people love when this guy's on. I love when he's on. This guy's just rabbit hole after rabbit hole, and the amount of information that comes out of his mouth within 2 hours is like fucking insane. It could probably feel like 500-page book. So, yeah, right. But before we introduce him, we're going to introduce Jules. What is up, my man? Thank you very much for coming on.
What's up, man? Hey, guys. You know me. Jules, host of the Greypilled Podcast. You find me on X at Greypilled Pod, YouTube, Rumble, and over on Patreon if you want to support the show. We do a lot of cool stuff over there. Just got done with an esoteric book review. Nick was there. We do it every Saturday morning exclusively on Patreon, and we're watching Twin Peaks currently exclusively on Patreon and kind of analyzing that show and the all the themes of occultism that you find in the show, and it's quite fascinating as it unravels. So a lot of cool stuff on Patreon. Happy to be here. Happy to see my friend Austin. It's been a minute. And ready to get into some shit.
Awesome. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate you making it. I will plug Headless Giant was going to make it on today with us, but unfortunately he couldn't because his
Shout
internet
out Headless.
is shitty. But he couldn't make it. If you got any weird stories or dreams, send them into the Headless Giant Podcast at gmail.com and leave your address, and if you want, and I will send you some free stickers, and we will read your story on the podcast. And we do have the lovely Lisa, the Occult Reject Mad Scientist, will be joining us in a little bit. She's running a little bit late, school and stuff, blah, blah, blah. But she'll be joining us in a little bit. And finally, before, I'm so sorry, Austin, I hate to do this, but it's just I want to do this because it's getting close to the events. There are events that the Occult Rejects will be at. There's a couple of them coming up soon. One of them will be, let me check it out, October 4th. This is for sure. They'll be at the factory in Franklin, North Carolina. It's like some Bigfoot type thing going on in cryptids. We will have a booth there. October 18th, and that one is in Florida at Fort Myers at a Masonic Lodge. And of course, the Occult Rejects had to get booth 33. We got that. We were able to pick, so of course I grabbed that one. So we'll be there October 18th, and Brooke from Dark Florida, who is one of the Occult Rejects, will be a speaker there. And somebody else who's been on the show already, Natalie, she'll be speaking there as well. And she's got some of her friends there. We've got a booth there, so it should be pretty cool. She's got a booth next to us, so definitely come check that one out. And then November 22nd, for sure, we'll be in Mooresville, North Carolina, basically Charlotte. And that will be at the Army National Guard, and that is like a UFO type situation event. And we'll have a booth there. So definitely come check them out. Most of them are all about $10 to $15, maybe $20 the most. So it's real cheap. So, I've even said, again, if the speakers suck, at least, you come and hang out with us for a while. It's worth the pipe, $10 to $15. Definitely get you entertainment if you come hang out with me. So, come check those out. And we have T-shirts available. Check that out as well. We got the seashell chick, and we got the cross-armed skeleton throwing up the fucking occult symbols and, silent rainbows dripping out of his eyeball. Check that out. If you're interested, hit me up. We got T-shirts for that. We are going to be selling those at the events as well. All right, so now I'm done. Finally, Austin, please let everybody know what your deal is and what's going on.
Awesome, brother. You already know how much I appreciate every time you have me on, Nick. I really do. I'm always far more interested in having conversations with people who are very open-minded and not necessarily over emotional in their reactionary state of mind, let's say, right? It becomes very frustrating at a certain point, and I would prefer to obviously only engage in good faith conversations. And I think that too often you have I just think maybe ego driven factors involved, things of that nature that might legitimately sort of derail any real ability to engage in that way that I think is very constructive. And so, I appreciate that, man, as always. And then Jules, reunited, my brother. I love you, man. I missed you so much, honestly.
I miss you too. And I'm very excited for what Already Dead has in store for the future, man. I love Jacob, and I think, to be honest with you, it frees up time for me to focus more on my stuff.
Right.
And Jacob was already a part of the show, right? Like, he was already making edits and basically there at every show backstage, and so it makes way more sense, dude. So I love you guys, and yeah, Fire Pixie, we know, very gay.
Always. Oh shit, Fire
and I'll
Pixie.
always rock. I mean,
my-
I still got the Already Dead merch. I always rock it, and
hell yeah.
hopefully come on soon, hang out with y'all.
Yeah, that's the plan for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I got to get back from this trip. I got to go see the family, and then we'll get you on the show for sure.
Oh, yeah,
that way, we can have a reunited episode. It'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, Fire Pixie's been criticizing my emotional state for quite some time. No, I'm just playing. Nothing but love, Fire Pixie. You know that. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like in this current state, right, this very much seems like political violence is at an all-time high, but in my mind it feels like it's a desired result, and I think that in many ways this is deliberate divisiveness, that is clearly being, I think, effectively just implemented, at a level that the vast majority of the just general public aren't necessarily read in on the underlying operational techniques involved with demoralization and how you kind of disrupt and destabilize society. And I think that the really Operation Gladio never ended, right? And the stay behind networks post World War II that were constructed in order to leave this heavy footprint for the permanent establishment to continue to disrupt any of these geographical areas and their, heads of state or any sort of political process from being able to, just sort of let's just say in any honest way with no sort of real diabolical influence attached to it from an outside entity, right? Which seems to kind of like, in my mind, mold society after its own interest. And I think that's why you have this international, what becomes, in many ways, this sort of globalist playbook, and I think that that's what Gladio represents more than anything, is these very well-established networks of facilitating covert domestic operations in a way that you can essentially greenlight them at any moment, because you have these sleeper cells basically in tow and involved with all, at the very least, you have these infiltrated assets in place that at any point you can sort of give the green light to, and the operation can go live. And I think that a great example is always, the Oklahoma City bombing. I think the Boston Marathon bombing is a perfect example as well. Operation Urban Shield. They have these simulations that are just like leading up to the event, and it's just so clearly obvious that, it's in my mind, when you see the ridiculous connections to not only like just the Operation Urban Shield, if you're unaware, like even in the morning of before the marathon began in Boston, you had police, right, who were essentially giving this insane. You had tweets that were going out by the Boston Globe as well, 12:53 p.m. before the race even began, and claiming that breaking news: police will have controlled explosions on 600 block on Boylston Street. And the second tweet was, there will be a controlled explosion opposite the library within 1 minute as part of a bomb squad activity. And then none of this is ever, it's all memory hold, and essentially falls under the umbrella of the dead internet, right? Which you have the Internet Archive go down, and all of a sudden it's wiped. And you have a lot of different articles that used to be archived that are now missing. And it's really Orwellian in more ways than one. And it's dystopian as well, and it perfectly leads into that, right, totalitarian path. And so I'm just always trying to kind of recognize the patterns and notice when the strategy of tension is alive and well. And I definitely view this most recent event with Charlie Kirk, just as far as one of those events that very much manufactures this heightened state of political violence, right? And then each side as well, like on the Minneapolis mass shooting, it falls perfectly into the same category as far as each side on the political spectrum gets what they want out of the event. And I
Oh,
think yeah, that's a really a almost it should at the very least cause each and every one of us to remain skeptical, and
Absolutely.
not accept these details at face value, because
Yeah.
so much of these reports, they just come out, and it seems like the report itself, even when it's later debunked by the very same authorities who made the original claim, it still has done its job in the subconscious mind of many of the individuals, as far as who fall onto that political ideological spectrum, because they're looking for that confirmation bias, right?
Yeah.
And
And these people are used in these little psyops, right? Like these people fall victim and kind of willingly are used by consenting in some way, right?
oh, yeah,
And it's funny, man, like before I produced on Already Dead, I had no idea what Project Gladio was,
mhm.
or Operation Gladio, whatever you want to call it. And I mean, it more people should know about this, but it's wild to me how many people, this just goes right over their head, you know?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Unfortunate.
Oh yeah, man, it definitely is, and just as far as the Paul Williams book, Operation Gladio: The Unholy Alliance, it's really just such an amazing template for, because it's if you see the unholy alliance between the Vatican, the CIA, and the mafia, I mean that alone kind of illustrates what we're dealing with, and I think that when you understand the power players, how the power structure is sort of has been for generations, very much kind of systematically entrenched at a level to where they would remain unaccountable and insulated from any real accountability for that is the end result and the goal of the ruling class, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to have any sort of true route for consequential nature of let's say policy positions that you should obviously. I mean, that's why all of these measures are in place to keep these political puppets from being charged after they serve as public representatives, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just disgusting to witness
Charlie
the.
flew too close to the sun, man.
Yeah, it feels that way to a certain extent, and it definitely feels as if it was of mutual benefit as far as the operators involved. If in many ways, as far as his sort of, it's a strategic moment. It feels, and I know that there's so much different footage going around viral as far as him questioning, let's say, even the internal dynamics in Israel itself, right? As far as claiming that it's basically at a sort of civil war, heightened state in Israel, within Israel, and this is all based on Netanyahu essentially just seizing power, right? And this was all by design, because he essentially was thrust onto the population of Israel in many ways, because by this. The Likuds, right, and these individual sort of organizations that really run the political beast and machinations in Israel itself, and he's out there just as a political puppet as the rest of them, but he's going to go down with the sinking ship that is the Gaza genocide, and that was the goal of this. And I think that's the reason they pulled him out from under those charges, where he was effectively going to potentially face prison time, and then all of a sudden he's pulled from he's basically rescued from that scenario and thrust back into power during this very obviously moment in time where there's nothing but complete and total escalation at every facet of Israeli policy. And so it just feels like it's manufactured in my mind, because
Dude. Yeah.
there's going to be
Yeah. I mean, it seems like they
consequences.
were sending a message here,
Yeah,
you know?
definitely. Did you see Netanyahu come out and address this?
His tweet and the first people, and I actually I did a stream last night on Patreon after the show we did, and then I did a stream this morning, and I've talked about it on Patreon, but not yet
Mhm.
publicly. The first news I'm pretty sure the first news publication to post this was the Jerusalem Post.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure. It's just these little synchronicities you see that they kind of allow us to see. I think it has to do with the revelation of the method and this whole light and dark, dualistic, Kabbalistic type of
oh my God,
guidelines that they live by.
Right. You say Kabbalistic. That's what John DeCamp, right, who was the legal counsel for Paul Benassi and some of the victims from the Franklin scandal, and was also a Nebraska state senator, I believe. And he came out and he essentially explained the origins of Project Monarch, right, and trauma-based mind control using children essentially to create altars and DID and things of that nature, and developing that technique and that sophisticated operation was essentially tied directly back to Michael Aquino, right? Obviously. And so what John DeCamp claims, and this is so nuts because you mentioned Kabbalistic, I think it's important because he says that these programs, these brainwashing programs, have a distinctive Kabbalistic magic theme. And I thought it was so. Oh, absolutely. It definitely seems that way. And I mean, I saw you guys had William Ramsey on to talk the Manchurian Candidate, and I just did as well. And it was so mind blowing, right?
The next day he hit me up and he was like, what was the odds of us talking about that the day before this just happened?
Yeah, exactly. And that's how I felt when he hit me up about it, because it was just around the time of the Minneapolis mass shooting. And I thought, wow, no better time than now. And then this happens. And I was just like, oh my God, like this is just crazy how much this has very much seems to be just as far as the it's insane to see the ridiculous patterns. It's hard to deny them as far as how many overlapping and resurfacing connections there are to the elements involved with the alleged perpetrators, the surrounding details of the cases and events themselves. Like they all tend to, and it's why I say pattern recognition so often, and I've seen it described as pattern recognition is a superpower, and I 100% believe that at this point, because as long as you're making sure that you're reflecting on your ideas and you're trying to remain objective, and you're not just accepting everything because it clearly confirms your bias. I mean, I honestly, the main goal is to obviously create a far more plausible alternative theory to the event itself, because I never accept what the FBI has to say. I just don't. I think that, the FBI is so clearly compromised and corrupt as an organization in general. And beyond that, it is their job to, consider the idea as well that this is so crazy to me, just as far as the numerology, right?
I was going to mention that. If you want to start entertaining numerology, now there is a difference, I will say, when it comes to gematria and Pythagoreanism. Mm-hmm. You will see a lot of people play with like in between dates and just regular numbers that isn't technically gematria. But if you do actually start using gematria and it starts showing up, my opinion, then the Kabbalah has to be integrated into it. Mm-hmm. If you start actually pulling like Hebrew or Greek or English equivalents of, and you stick to the value of that shit,
right. So
like gotta be involved, or it wouldn't, you know what I'm saying? Like that's what it's tied to.
Absolutely. That was that. You remember that guy that went up to the Manhattan office building where the NFL headquarters was, and BlackRock and all that, and he went up to the floor of BlackRock, the 33rd floor, and he happened to he got off on the wrong elevator bay, and he goes in there and essentially kills this shoots this person who's affiliated with BlackRock Real Estate, and like all this crazy is very interesting. But again, you had
numerical death cult, dude.
Yeah, you had this insane sort of numerology attached to that event itself as well. And I forget, there were other details that really boggled my mind that connected to that event specifically. But then you come to find that this specific event with Charlie Kirk, allegedly, 33 hours into the manhunt.
36, specifically 33. Right?
And then I'll see you in Valhalla.
what are we doing? Yeah,
What's
I know,
going
man.
on here, bro? Are you like Hell Woden now? You know,
Yeah,
like
he's
are
an
you not
Odinist
like
now.
worshiping your monkey god anymore? Like
Don't you got
what's up?
elephants to fucking bring to?
Is the world not on the back of a turtle suspended by 4 elephants?
Oh my god.
You know,
I love it.
that's all I want to know. And this is the guy who is heading. I mean, dude, Charlie Kirk was the Republican sweetheart, right? Like that's what they're calling him, like the right wing darling or whatever the fuck. But like this is an example of what these kind of events do. They trigger this like mass trauma, like
Exactly.
all these people on the right are just so upset and just like, but like, you know, schizos like us, we're used to stuff like this happening.
Right.
This is all in the game, baby. You know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
this is what it's about. And, you know, so Gerald Hall says the Goyim know. Yeah. And so, you know, I don't know. It's just unfortunate. And for this to happen in front of his family,
Mm-hmm. Oh,
I can find no words to describe, you know, how that makes me feel. It really.
But I mean, I agree with you. I feel like I'm somewhat insulated from the emotional.
And I wasn't a fan of Charlie. Like I didn't agree with him on a lot of things, but like, you know, this hits on another level, you know.
Yeah. And it just goes to show like how willing they are to sacrifice one of their own in a way as well, which in my mind, that's sort of what happened here. And you know, when you
He was
become
a red heifer, right?
Yeah. Hey, when you become a sort of shill for the establishment, and I hate to put it that way, I'm not trying to like, you know, demonize the guy's character after the fact, but it's just I'm being honest.
We get it. Yeah.
I obviously never really. I appreciate conservative family values and things of that nature, obviously, but when it comes to like the ridiculous nature of sort of running defense for the permanent establishment at every level, and then also genocide in the state of Israel in its current structured kind of form, it like, and you know, that is when I just find it very difficult to imagine that he wasn't a part of the chosen, right? As far as being those alternative media influencers that seem very much like they're assets, right? And assets in place to disrupt and I think kind of distract. Also, many of the individuals on the political spectrum fleeing from the like, as I usually say, the dying last gasp of the mainstream media, and this is how they're corralled back into the establishment line. Is individual influencers like Charlie Kirk. And I understand like Turning Point, right? What is he doing? He's basically attempting to propagandize and you know.
And who runs Turning Point now?
Ben Shapiro. Isn't that insane? He takes over Turning Point
You
right
can't make this up, dude.
I know. I saw that post yesterday while I was doing the stream with William. I saw that come across. I was like, no way this is true, right? And turns out, yes, Ben Shapiro is now running Turning Point, which that's all I saw as well, by the way. That the day that it happened, did you not see all the influencers parroting the same exact sort of phrase? This is a turning point. We are at a turning point. There's things of that nature, and it was just like they were kind of embedding it's a play on words, I guess, in a way, but at the same time, you know, it's hard for me to just kind of dismiss the level of scripted reaction. You know what I mean? It feels like it's you know how it is when you notice that everything's very much worded identically, and it seems like too many people are and now of course you have just low frequency you know, individuals who are engaging at a level where
NPCs, right?
Yeah, they're falling into the traps already. I saw it on both sides of the aisle. It was either he's completely trans and, you know, like he's in some trans gun movement and radicalized on Discord, or he's or this was the other thing that I saw. People I grew up with, and I know they have good intentions, but man, they're ideologically imprisoned. They're just they've acquired the mind virus, you know, and it's impossible for them to sort of.
There's definitely a right-wing mind virus now.
Oh, absolutely.
It exists.
Oh, for sure.
It absolutely exists, just as the left-wing mind virus does.
Yes.
And that's when we say, you know, two wings of the same bird, two heads of the, or two ends of the same snake, two sides of the same coin.
Right.
Quite literally, you know.
Right. I saw someone in the chat say we still have free will. Yeah, up until a certain point. Like, I'll be
Totally.
honest.
Man, they shackle you in chains.
Yeah, I'm questioning the very concept of free will at times, only because I think that they found out how to utilize this sort of perfect recipe of how to kind of utilize pharmaceutical agents, right, post hypnotic suggestion, various different elements that are involved with the sophisticated methods of mind control, and they've eliminated the very concept of free will. They've shattered your ability to engage in free will. Imagine if you were targeted at, let's just say, a low ELF, subliminals being programmed in you as you sleep, and you have no conscious awareness of this, right? It reminds me again of Manchurian Candidate, right, where Frank Sinatra's character in the film, in the 62 film, he's like, it starts out, he wakes up, he's having this terrible recurring nightmare that and it's him waking up to his programming, essentially, and also remembering things that happened when he was in a hypnotic trance. And now that, in a way, that definitely applies to things that I have read about. Allegedly, there's a shelf life for the Manchurian, and that there tends to be, you have to sort of reinforce the programming, or it will essentially, he will break out. Yeah, you'll break out of the programming, and it will expire, as it has that shelf life. And
Britney Spears, you know,
right.
Lindsay Lohan, you know, you go shave your head somewhere in public and start talking crazy about how they're controlling, you know, talking crazy, right?
Yeah, man.
But this goes into like the consent, what I was talking about, of they've built this material world for us and we chose to live in it, right? And so in a way, our free will has kind of been given up. I mean, we still have free will to an extent, yeah, but you know, we have consented to this system to live under. Unfortunately, I mean, you know, you can go off grid and life won't be as comfortable or easy, but maybe in a way easier, right? Like spiritually easier, maybe, you know, easier on your soul. You may live longer.
Right.
I don't know. There's a lot to that, but don't mean to get off on a tangent.
All I know is that it's kind of crazy because besides the 33 hours right into the manhunt, there was also did you see the 6 years and 66 days since Charlie Kirk shows began?
No.
July 7th, 2019, and then Wednesday, September 10th, 2025. It's 6 years and 66 days. I thought that was
Shit,
incredible. That was insane, right? Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, how are we supposed to just accept that, you know? But then you have that strange individual who was clearly a diversion and a distraction in the moment, right? That Jewish guy, was it George Zinn was one of the patsies, I think, and he essentially was he's arrested while he's creating this diversion during the just direct fallout. And essentially, he's recounting that he knew Al Qaeda. This is a crazy video I found that's circulating now. Basically, this guy recounts, the same exact guy, George Zinn, years ago, recounted how he knew Al Qaeda was responsible for the 9/11 attack the moment he saw the towers fall. And allegedly, he also called in a bomb threat to, I believe it was a marathon in Utah, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the other weird thing he was connected to. Yeah.
I'm like, whoa, hold on.
He's like that kid that shows up at all the mass shootings.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly. He's like Tim McVeigh going to Waco. Like, what is happening here? But I don't know. Like, I look at these pictures. It's so impossible to imagine that this was the perpetrator. But it is possible. But I will say that if anything, I would side more with, you know, he was kind of put into position and much more of a patsy, if in my mind, right? But especially when you see he apparently was hanging out around some junior ROTC Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps, and was hanging out with all these students who were interested in the military program. And but there's no like legitimate evidence that he himself was a member of the ROTC. But that goes to kind of like connect back to, again, you have obviously his father. I think his uncle also was according to his mom's Facebook, his uncle was apparently his uncle. His name is Michael Robinson, and he's an info system security manager with the Air Force who was stationed at Hill Base in the city area, and then now has been relocated to Japan. So there's definitely already some strange affiliations to the family themselves. And then obviously Tyler himself apparently was very intelligent. I would really like to know what he was studying at the university itself, because he he apparently had like a 34 on his ACT score, so that kind of fits the pattern as well of like the James Holmes types, right? Which understanding that this guy's father was apparently a 27-year veteran of the Washington County Sheriff's Department, and you look at how he actually played a role in this caught my attention because it reminded me of Omar Mateen's dad, James Holmes' father. The ridiculous connections. It's Eric Harris, it's Adam Lanza. It's, how many can we point to where that's the case? And yeah, it's fascinating to see how involved he was with the actual apprehension of his own son. Like that just blows me away as well. He apparently, the father of the shooter, he decided to notify the authorities and let them know he had secured his son until they could arrive to pick him up. So he himself apprehended his own son and then turned him into the police, which I don't know. It's just a difficult thing for me to kind of grapple with. How would you react in that moment? I'm not entirely certain, as far as if your son was allegedly responsible for something like this, or and then you look at the details of how they know it was him. It's very strange. It seems there's not really anything that to me screams this is technically the case, right? Because this is all from like a third source, like a third party, a roommate that he allegedly knew, tells officers that Robinson discussed the engravings and his movements after the killing in an online chat room, right? So instantly people, because they claimed that he used Discord, but Discord rejects this. And you look at his digital footprint, it's basically been deleted. It's been memory hold as well, just as recently happened with Robert Westman. That just happened with him as well, the trans shooter in Minneapolis. And it tends to take place where, Ryan Routh, I believe, he's the one who really had his digital footprint just completely destroyed, because it seems like that's just sort of par for the course. But yeah, you had, I think, what did they say was on the inscriptions on the weapons? I thought it was interesting as far as like one of the fired rounds, I think, and then one of the fired casings read notices bulge. OWO. What's this? Which is a meme that's obviously apparently used to troll furries and transgenders by claiming like notices bulge. OWO. What's this is apparently this sort of viral phrase that people use in this online community, where they kind of just troll trans and furries who have a dick, obviously, is the the implication.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you see that, and then obviously there's another video of him. I don't know, man. This kid he feels like a patsy. You know what I mean? Like you watch him accept his when you watch him accept his like scholarship, it blew me away, honestly. And because it seemed like the kid was just completely like, I don't know, those, I don't know, it just seemed like in no way did he have like violent sort of tendencies. I don't know, maybe I could be wrong, but it just definitely didn't seem that way. It's hard to obviously gauge that at face value when you have so little evidence of the individual on video. But still, another one that he put on the casings apparently this is notice his bulges, obviously, and then hey fascist catch alongside an up arrow, a right arrow symbol, and another 3 arrows pointing downwards, which they claim the symbols could be a reference to the Iron Front, a paramilitary group set up in opposition of the Nazi Party during the Weimar Republic period in Germany. And but then also social media users pointed out to Helldivers 2, the video game, right? And basically Helldivers 2, there's a code to call in an airstrike in the game where that is the exact code sequence where it's hit up, right, followed by down 3 times. And so who knows? And then Bella Ciao also was engraved, and that's an Italian anti-fascist song which was dedicated to the Italian resistance who fought against the Nazis. And then there was one other which I thought was very interesting, and it was this was an unfired casing inscribed with, "If you read this, you're gay. Laugh my ass off." That's what I swear to God. Which yeah, I don't know. It just, to me, just knowing how when you see the details of what allegedly happened and the timeline of him, like obviously neatly wrapping up the weapon in a towel and leaving it in a bush, like that is just ridiculous. And I still am not convinced that the guy that the guy actually has a gun. Like as far as when the footage of him like leaving the jumping off the roof and scaling the roof and then jumping down, it doesn't look like he actually has a gun. That people are claiming that he already broke it down and put it in that floppy case, which it seems very floppy, like it's a bag of clothes to me, much more than an actual weapon. But they said that he already broke it down. That's another theory. Okay, well then why did he reassemble it and before he put it in the woods? What the fuck are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense.
Someone say that. They said, I don't know much about guns if this person's right or not, but they said that's an extremely like hard gun, or it's just time consuming to take it apart. It's not easy to pry apart or whatever. And they said, so like they said, the amount of time that would have been spent on him taking it apart to re-put it together, stopping while he's like, unless you're doing this while you're running, you're going to stop. You're going to do all this. He's like, it makes no sense.
No sense. And then of course you have the ridiculous smoking gun to me, which is the flight activity, right? Just before and after the assassination, which allegedly they tried to wipe this flight data. And so essentially you have the FAA tail number N888KG, which is apparently owned by N888KG LLC, registered in Lehi, Utah. Owner Derek Maxfield, and is listed in some of these databases apparently. So I haven't looked that guy up yet. I would be interested to know if he has a glowing background of some kind. But so apparently this jet leaves the Provo Municipal Airport around 10 to 12 minute drive from the area where Charlie Kirk's assassinated. And then again, I think I-15 is like a stone's throw, right? The interstate itself is just right. Like if you're running an operation and you want sort of easy, just as far as to facilitate the escape in a way for the perpetrator who's on the ground operative.
That interstate.
Exactly. You would have this so conveniently sort of chalked off strategically as far as these are the movements, like you would imagine if you're trying to get your asset out of town after they obviously, perform the hit, which in my mind, this screams of a professional hit, right? I feel like there are so many different elements to it that again, remind me of even when William and I were speaking yesterday about JFK and how the Daily Plaza, right, where basically there's an individual who runs out and essentially acts as if they're having a seizure in the street and draws all this attention away from, right, while I think strategic assets are kind of going into position, or right, and that's why you had multiple kill squads set up as well. You had Howard Hunt there running point on the ground, and that's why he was spotted by various witnesses who he was concerned would be able to identify him by the shape of his ears, and so he went and had plastic surgery done just after the Dallas assassination, where he gets his ears pinned back, which I always thought was insane. And because he claimed that was a very at least one of the key elements that they would utilize to identify him as far as a key witness. And but yeah, so you look at this flight tracking data though, and it does seem like this is 1 hour after the shooting, this apparently you have the jet taking off heading southeast toward the Arizona-Nevada border, consistent with a standard domestic flight at cruise speeds of 470 to 500. Approximately 30 to 46 minutes into the flight, the aircraft's ADS-B transponder was disabled, causing it to go dark or vanish from public radar. And so then this is obviously an FAA-mandated system. And so then you had a broadcast of real-time position, and it essentially was claiming that during the blackout, the jet could have covered 350 to 400 nautical miles, which was enough distance for a quick drop-off at a remote airstrip like Page Municipal Airport in Arizona, which is around 300 nautical miles away, which is, by the way, 33-minute flight time. I couldn't believe that shit when I read that. I was like, no, this can't be the case. But yeah, and so that to me, I feel like there's no way when it reemerges on radar about an hour later, now reversing course and heading back to PVU where it lands without incident. Very strange. You're performing a drop-off right after the assassination. Why did you go dark? Right? Like that's a key question I think people need to understand, man. And that, again, like I had mentioned to you guys before, I think privately, is that it instantly reminded me of the helicopter story from Vegas, right? Because what do you have there in the Vegas shooting in 2017? A company called Maverick Aviation Group. All right, this is so crazy. And now it has long-standing ties to this, supplying the CIA with military-grade helicopters. And as the story goes, the CIA needed Russian helicopters because of its clandestine operations in Afghanistan. And so this was the very company that apparently in September 2001, a Russian-made helicopter loaded with $10 million in cash carried a small CIA team into Afghanistan's Panjshir Valley. This was codenamed Jawbreaker. And this mission was to cement support among tribal leaders and pave the way for U.S. military operations. That was the very first entry of Americans into Afghanistan post-September 11th. This ties directly into the Vegas shooting because due to the fact that in October 1st, 2017, 3 Mustang Leasing LLC Airbus EC-130 helicopters, which had affiliation with Maverick Aviation Group, that very company, their transponders happened to go dark after all 3 helicopters came to hover behind the Mandalay Bay just minutes before the shooting started. Now, this obviously lends credibility to reports of potential helicopter exfiltration being performed on the roof of the hotels, and also reports of gunfire coming from at least one of these helicopters that very same night, because you had many different victims, witnesses who were claiming that, and also claiming they were like operatives on the ground, like chasing individuals and shooting them at point blank range, right? Shootings on the 3rd floor, shootings on the floor above Paddock's room. It's just so crazy how much there was even reports of like the Hooters, right? The Hooters was a hotel at that time, right? And so they claimed that there was an active shooter that came in through the back and essentially opened fire, and this was in the Hooters, right, where he was in a gunfight. And this was reported as well. And they claimed armed security were in a gunfight with each other, which that lends to the credibility of like the Mohammed bin Salman connection and having like this interesting attempted coup play out in real time in Vegas, right? And also how you could green light an operation at the very same moment through covert operation called Operation Fast and Furious, where you're gun running and distributing drugs, and that was through a local mob figure named Razdan Shulayev, who was, by the way, he received Stephen Paddock's Silkway Airlines in Chicago O'Hare International Airport at one point, filled with guns, baby. Like, I mean, that's what they were doing. They were laundering money in Vegas. You know, that's what was happening. And I think that this was another like green light go operation, right? And so I just thought the helicopter story itself was was very interesting in terms of how it connects back to, obviously, this ridiculous private jet, but I don't know. I just understanding how much of these shooting events are so orchestrated. It's impossible for me to just accept any of this without questioning every single aspect of the official narrative, right? And that should be, I think, your go-to, right? I think your baseline should be, right, at every level, question the official narrative, right? And definitely, I think that it's important as well to understand that apparently the exact same day that the Charlie Kirk assassination happened, the Epstein files were apparently blocked. Right? Did you realize this? September 10th, 2025, the Senate voted 51-49 to block the release of the Epstein files the exact same day Charlie Kirk dies. I thought that was strange timing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had
and
seen somebody post about that.
Yeah, man. Senate Republicans defeat Democrats' effort to force the release of the Epstein files, as if it wasn't convenient enough for both sides. Yes.
Get the fuck out, dude.
Oh,
yeah, man.
Why are people buying that bullshit at all?
Yeah, 100%.
It doesn't surprise me. Doesn't surprise me one bit.
Well, that's the thing. Trump ran on that at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah. He owes that, dude. Like, he owes that to the people. But fuck the people, right?
Exactly.
It's basically what he said.
And I thought it was strange that the FBI was claiming that they were opening an investigation internally into sort of the the way that they put it. It was very strange. It seemed as if they were basically, hold on, let me find it because I thought it was interesting. Yeah. Basically, they said that they're opening an internal investigation into whether its own agents obstructed, quote, politically sensitive cases, including the cover-up of the Anthony Weiner laptop. And I thought very convenient timing when you consider the release of the Epstein birthday book and how much it's kind of like hanging around the neck of the right and the Trump administration at this moment. Wouldn't you want to politicize and make public some sort of allegations surrounding the Democrats specifically being pedophiles? Because maybe that'll help misdirect the public by saying, hey, but they're pedophiles too. You know what I'm saying? Like basically what he would do, because what does that implicate? The implication from the Anthony Weiner laptop is Hillary Clinton and Uma Abedin, obviously. And in my mind, right, Podesta. And so it fits the pattern of.
Well, they think that we can't keep up with them, but like I don't think they realize that we've evolved. Like we notice these things now, we see these patterns, and I mean it's just a matter of time before hopefully more people start to notice. But I mean, right. Yeah, man, it's wild that they think they can just get away with it for so long because they have, right?
Right. Dude, I'm telling you, it is what do you see? The instant reaction. You have the usual suspects. You have the former stripper Anna Paulina Luna going on Benny Johnson's show. Benny Johnson, that dude glows like the sun. He's Sean Ryan incarnate. Basically, they're the same in my mind. They just parrot the CIA talking points and act as if they're having dangerous conversations. It's hilarious, but in reality, they're just reinforcing the establishment narrative, and it's interesting to see that Anna Paulina Luna went on Benny Johnson's show directly after the Charlie Kirk assassination, announcing legislation making politically motivated attacks a civil rights violation, ensuring offenders face the full weight of the law. She says, quote, "I'm in the process of writing legislation to update the civil rights codes to ensure that if you are committing an hate crime as a result of someone's political ideologies and affiliations, that it should be the same charges as a civil rights violation. There is going to be punitive action, and I'd hope that the person that did this to Charlie gets the electric chair." That's what Anna Paulina Luna says. And so again, you have a pretext for legislative, implementation, which again is just another dystopian application of how you move the goalposts into the wrong direction. and then let alone obviously the ridiculous nature of if you listen to the actual reports, and I don't know about this. It makes sense if it's an actual false flag event, where false flag doesn't mean there wasn't anyone killed. Obviously, people misinterpret that too often, but it makes sense that this would apply. But also, I thought I was just considering the idea that this would be a convenient way to also undermine any sort of dissenting opinion in regard to this event, and that was the New York Times and LA Times reporting Charlie Kirk being shot on September 9th and the day before. And then you have the Amazon book being published, The Shooting of Charlie Kirk, right? One day before his murder as well. And yeah, I don't know. Apparently members of the crowd, just like in Vegas, where you had individuals in the crowd warning, you're all going to fucking die. You're basically, I forget the name of that woman who forced her way up to the front of the crowd at the country music festival and made all these claims to them before being basically split apart from her boyfriend or something. I can't remember now. But either way, prior knowledge. And so here they're claiming that eyewitness accounts in Utah revealed people in the crowd claiming they knew he was about to get killed. Very strange. I mean, at the very least, it seems worthwhile in mentioning, and it seems to kind of at least allude to the idea of prior knowledge and significant pre-planning, and that's like,
dude, you know what it rings to me? It just ritual,
right?
Brother. I think that's all it is, was a public ritual.
Feels like it.
We were talking about on my Patreon show this morning on the book review, subliminal. He pulled up a picture of the stage, and the way the stage is presented, it looks like it's kind of on this altar. Yeah, it's very, very strange.
Did you see you saw the fucking hilarious, we paid some Etsy witches to curse Charlie Kirk, right? You saw that report? What the hell, dude?
Saw that.
And by the way, they tried to delete that report so quick. I thought it was interesting because I had to archive that, dude, because it was
the same witches that apparently curse Trump daily.
Oh, you remember that?
No. I don't know if they're doing such a good
job. Yeah, they're probably not doing very well.
There's actually couples of witches doing that shit.
That's so funny. I mean, it's I don't know. It's between that and then obviously it seemed like such a staged and precise moment for him to have been shot, because it's directly in the as he's being questioned about mass. Do you know how many mass shootings of events were committed by trans or something like that in the past year? I can't remember what the question was. Basically that, and then he picks up the mic and he answers the question and gets shot. It's so fucking strange, and the timing is insane. And then the guys who are doing the obvious sort of baseball signals, the hand signals to you saw that too, right? The individuals next to Charlie who are like doing those, touching the hat and like down the arm, and then he gets shot directly after they do the hand signals. It's like, my God, the only thing that is somewhat debatable on that is the fact that they seem to naturally jump when the fucking shot rang out and came through. It's the only thing that was saving them in that moment, as far as if you want to make an argument there. But it still seems too convenient for me, as far as what else would they be doing? Is that how they typically interact and have long distance conversations with other security detail members? I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying to come up with some plausible reason as to why it would come off that way. But yeah, that all of that combined, it makes it very, very almost impossible for me to kind of imagine this wasn't a controlled operation. And obviously they provided the window necessary for the true perpetrator, who was, in my mind, a covert operative, to escape. And then
we'll never know who really did it, right?
Exactly, man. It's the same as, even though I did finally get a name for who they claim was the guy who pulled the trigger on JFK. And it's some international hitman. I got to find it again. It blew my mind, but I hope that's true. Not that, it's
all
some
closure.
Yeah, I want some closure, man. For real. That's basically what is happening. But yeah, I don't know, man. All of this, and then you consider to me, the first thought that I had, right, is that individual who was misidentified as the perpetrator with his pants on the ground and yelling "shoot me," right? It's either he's in on the operation and he's clearly running a distraction purposefully, or he's potentially mind controlled to a certain extent, and he's just kind of going about his programming of causing an inherent distraction in the moment. You never know how you would place an individual asset into position and utilize a patsy for that sort of situation. You would more want to. I definitely think that it's important to, at the very least, imagine that at some level, and you look at Tyler Robinson and his mugshot. Like, I don't know. I'm curious to see how this trial, kind of the subsequent trial seems to play out. Because honestly, knowing how much James Holmes sort of showed signs of DID and things of that nature, right? What's going on?
What's up, Lee?
Sorry about that. But I've been listening the whole time, I promise.
Awesome. How are you doing?
Good, just fine. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh no, you're good. I'm just basically going schizo on all of
He's
these
cooking.
mass shootings and things like that. Because to me, I just think like there, and I saw, and I had mentioned to Jules privately, it was that Charlotte train stabbing, right, with the Ukrainian refugee. I thought it was interesting because you had the individual himself claim that he was the perpetrator, the black male. He claims he's under mind control, right, during the stabbing, and there was that phone call of him with his sister, I believe, and she's questioning, like, why did you choose her, and why did you kill her, and basically he says that he was implanted. There was a man-made material that controlled when he ate, walked, talked, and he believed that essentially what he told his sister. He says that basically the government implanted materials in his body that made him commit the crime. And, he could just be completely insane or going for the insanity plea. That's possible as well. You never know what.
He's playing that. He's already playing that. I gotta act fucking batshit crazy now.
Yeah, I mean, it tends to happen where that does take place in certain cases, and it makes sense. But I don't know. I mentioned the sort of consequential nature of the ushering through legislation on the back of these events and high impact events and manufactured crises, and it is an emotional. I think they are attempting to elicit an over emotional reaction, and basically, as I think Jules mentioned, it's we are essentially all trauma bonded at a certain level, right? I think, and that is by design. I mean, one nation under mind control at a certain level, right? And I think this is how you utilize fear as a tool to manufacture consent. That's what they typically do. And so, if you're in a heightened state of fear, and you're considering, oh my God, political violence is at an all-time high, I feel like that is entirely driven into our conscious minds by design as well, because they want us to, one, potentially it will ratchet up and inflame even the internal family dynamic, right? Even having conversations with people you disagree with and are on opposite ends of the political spectrum, let's say. It's why I try and take a step back and remove myself from that, from partisan politics as often as possible. But as I mentioned before, there are people just often running with the parroting of these political agendas, and many of which I saw on the left representing itself as it was gun violence doesn't care about your ideology. And I just thought, oh my gosh, like this is the state of mind that, unfortunately has been overly conditioned into embracing these false equivalencies and just such just unfortunate ideas that are clearly, you know, and I feel like you have these baked in, you know, measures of controlling mechanisms in place, right? As far as this is how you now, when you aren't aware that you're acting out sort of the worst case scenario in terms of your own political, let's say your own well-being, right? Considering the outcome, it's like that you've been conditioned to essentially facilitate, right, self-defeating policies, which that is fascinating to me, and it falls perfectly in place with the right as well, because you look at 2017 in the Vegas shooting, bump stocks are the problem. I mean, you had Trump in the administration, his first term, and he's the face of gun control. Like it, Obama couldn't have passed bump stock legislation probably, and that's what I always see is like one. It's always like one side of the political aisle can achieve what the other cannot. And so that seems to always be the way the pendulum swings. It never swings in our direction. We're always heading down that totalitarian tiptoe, no matter who is in public office. And that is why I'm always overly concerned with who are the true power brokers. You know, like I would like to be able to distinguish that for myself, as far as distinguish between the true power brokers and the political puppets facilitating this dystopian agenda. And that's only, I think, the only time that you can feel like you're objectively kind of pursuing any sort of honest, right, credible evidentiary outcome in any way. But
Austin, I think you and Jules were mentioning how right after the Kirk shooting that they passed a legislation to not unearth the Epstein list. And if you want to dissect and look at all of these events, everything from the pandemic to Columbine, every single one had three main components that are literally a thread that connects each one. There was legislation on the table that needed to be passed. The perps were somehow known by the FBI, and then the third was that there was always some military tie to all of them. And so, I mean, you kind of can't get away from any of that. And so the main thing the reason I bring this up is because people made money off of saying release the list. People made political strides, advancements, and careers out of that narrative. Yeah. And now you're going to release it? I don't think so. But so they needed a big distraction, like a huge one. Yeah. And this is the person that was the martyr, really, to be honest with you.
I agree. I
mean, whether it happened or it didn't, whether it was purposeful or not, it did its job. Never let a crisis go to waste is a famous line in politics, right?
Yep. That's 100% it. And that's the same reason why the day of the Minneapolis mass shooting, you had the former IDF special operations veteran, Aaron Cohen, who came out with the Gideon AI threat detection platform, right? The software that he was going to distribute to local police departments and things of that nature. It's so insane because you look at it and it looks like it's an AI-powered threat detection system that essentially it will scan the open web for signs of radicalization and tactical planning. And Cohen obviously presented this to the White House, right? And it's modeled on Israel's counterterrorism approach. And this is a proposed partnership with the current Trump administration to scale its use. And so the system, it aims to assist law enforcement agencies in identifying potential threats before they materialize, and is currently being marketed to local police departments. The technology has received backing from Peter Thiel's Palantir, and is also promoted as a tool to combat human trafficking. That I thought was insane that they said that in the very same breath, right? As far as just tying human trafficking to this
Well,
technology as a tool to combat it, when in reality, I think it would help facilitate the state-sponsored aspect of it.
and I think, and I mean, and this is a little bit of a nugget that I've been holding on to, and Nick knows this, that Peter Thiel worked with Epstein, and they created software.
Oh, I've been waiting for you to have this so we can bring this up.
And that software is being implemented in small cities in the U.S. And that same software has been used in casinos to track and identify people that are cheating very effectively. And it is the same software that is used for child trafficking, yet we can't somehow find these groups. Right? I would think that the same software that is effective for casinos would be successful in the latter, but it comes from the same company.
Right. That's so hilarious. I bet they are just utilizing it to cap the competition. That's probably what they're actually doing with that software. But yeah, and we're in the age of AI adoption as well, right? This transformative moment where people are falling into the trap. And I think you see how clearly the Transhumanist Manifesto, they're creating a new age religion surrounding this.
That's the reason they got Vance in there, dude.
It's crazy.
Now,
That's 100% why they have
Teal's
Vance.
boy is in there.
Yeah,
Exactly.
So Teal is in there, but
Yeah.
and you got people right now saying that Musk is like waking up to it's like, no, dude, they're going to try to portray that Musk is this white hat. And it's just like, no, they're all part.
They need a manufactured villain or a manufactured.
Right. And Albert Pike
whatever.
said it best: when the people need a hero, they will, provide us.
Get one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But and not to, because I know that this will be clipped out. Well, not really, but the list itself, I don't really care. I don't. But what I do care about is that people made money, and they made advancements in their political career.
Grifted it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And now all of a sudden you're not going to use it. I don't think so. That's the reason I'm saying what I'm saying. I don't care, because honestly, whether you show the list or not, that still continues. It'll morph into.
We know who is on it, Lisa.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
we know all these characters.
There's a change of hands, and I'm pretty sure the change of hands of who is now in charge has turned over 10 times since then.
Mm-hmm.
So we're behind the 8 balls, sort of, in terms of trying to figure it out when they've already made long advancements. But that's not the point here, is that we keep, as a tax-paying citizenry, we keep letting things slide over and over. That's it. I get it.
I'm with you.
Yeah,
I'm 100% with you. And Jules brought up JD Vance and Elon. It's so funny because imagine, I've been saying this since Elon and Trump had the falling out, which is just to me, very convenient timing. You distance yourself from Trump just before the Epstein noose is tied around his neck. And then you conveniently claimed that you're going to start a freedom party or whatever the hell he claimed he was going to do. And what did he instantly his instant what his pivot, right, basically, was that he will no longer start the Freedom Party to apparently, usher through the next Republican candidate. Instead, he's just going to support JD Vance, which I thought was hilarious. But, it just goes to show that this is going to continually, as far as the technocratic state that's forming around us. Yeah, it's in no way will it be derailed with any of these power players involved in the sort of just in powerful positions in this moment. I feel like it's Peter Thiel acolytes surrounding Trump, the Sam Altmans of the world, all of these, Larry Ellison. Are you kidding me? Oracle.
And think about it. They're like their own priesthood in a way, right? We're always told, it's not really the presidents or the kings that have the say, but the priests that have the contact with the gods, right? Or in this case, the AI.
And if we're so, worried about, these people, these tech giants or whatever, or we're worried about, AI taking over, I'm assuming in the political sphere, they are worried as well. I'm assuming. Why are the same companies like Larry Ellison's Oracle, why are those same companies having interactions and selling for the Chinese government? Why are they providing Minority Report style software to China, and then coming over here and doing the same with us. Why?
Mhm. Project Stargate just went to India too. It's just after that huge meeting, the dinner party at the White House, and they're all like, "Trump, I'll give you this much, I'll give you that much," and it was so funny to watch. Like they're all just shilling for the just honestly claiming what 600 billion, like all these ridiculous numbers that they're floating out, and like basically then Sam Altman and ChatGPT get this major contract where they're allowed to enter India and create these massive AI data centers and get up to some gigawatt. I can't remember what is necessary for ChatGPT to function at the level that they're hoping to achieve. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. And so it just goes to show, right? Project Stargate goes international, which already was taking place, obviously, but yeah, and then Elon, what did he claim was happening with AI? He said we are summoning the Antichrist. Now, is that as in the form of
Teal said that.
Summoning the demon.
Elon said it was a demon, but Teal is calling it the Antichrist recently.
Right. Correct.
And people are like, "Oh, what the fuck?"
It's still crazy, right?
It could be an autobiographical speech, but anyway.
Well, it could have transitioned from a demon into the Antichrist,
I mean, you could definitely imagine a world where, especially when you have like the what's his name, Mark Andreessen, who goes on Rogan and he's shilling for an AI government, right? And he's fully tied into all of this, and same with Peter Thiel, and they all just overlap with their business interests. I think they're facilitating. This is the face of in my mind, the intelligence apparatus and acting in the private sector, right? It's like that's what it feels like to me. I mean, yes. I view them one and the same. I think that they provided Elon with the keys just the same as they did with Zuckerberg. With you look at the LifeLog project, the DARPA LifeLog project, that was Facebook. They gave him the keys the very same day LifeLog project ended. Facebook begins. I mean, get out of here.
Who was the first person to give a major contribution to LifeLog / Facebook to get it?
Yeah, Alphabet and CIA. It was all
Peter
CIA.
Thiel.
Peter Thiel. I know Alphabet was basically.
Yes, they were also in it. Yeah, but Thiel was one of the first private individuals to give a huge chunk of change.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And that is why I think that Oracle, Palantir, all of these various organizations that, perfectly represent the ushering in of the full totalitarian technocratic state, then I think it is the achievable goal that is in sight for the very much, I think, the permanent establishment in this moment. And it causes me a lot of concern because I think that this is going to usher through the pre-crime policing aspect of everything, where it's obviously mass surveillance, biodigital, as far as this dystopian biometrics, right? Where it's, I mean, my God, we're going to have everything sort of just combined, and then in terms of, it's very interesting how they hope to control us at this level, right? Of having your banking tied to it's what I believe they're hoping Twitter would have become, which is the everything app, right? Which is kind of like this way to control the public square, and also, as in my mind, it goes into the playbook of like when Klaus Schwab claimed that the next real threat to face all of global society will make COVID pale in comparison, and it's the threat of a cyber pandemic. And in my mind, it looked like there's going to be a grid down scenario where they finally usher through the new internet, and they claim it's okay. No longer do you have the ability to remain anonymous in this sort of context. Now it's a KYC, know your customer verification, in order to even have an online footprint in general. And so that is going to cause major just chaos in general, but it's going to cause this inability for us to remain just in anonymous, one, but also I think it's crucial for people to have the ability to have, at least to have the option for anonymity, because clearly
agency as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think it's terrible when you imagine them combining your banking systems with your digital footprint, because if that's the case, then it's just like the trucker convoy in Canada, where they shut down that old woman's bank account because she had the audacity to, make a contribution financially to a political cause that was obviously in the minds of the establishment, clearly a dissenting as far as against the just current political agenda, and that in itself is very dangerous, right? So
Austin, and when you said that how they tie us to everything and that everything will be used to control us, Ivana said something, and I'm in Texas, so I know this very, very intimately, is these data centers have been placed in areas of very high demand for water because they're, semi-arid, they're arid areas. There's already a water crisis, so to speak, on the natural flora because most Texas is like about 90% privately owned, and majority of that ranches, and it basically lets it run however it needs to run. But these data placed along these cities that already are in a major water crisis already to support its system. The data centers are petitioning Texas legislature to sequester that water away from cities and utilize it for their own good, right? One of the data she mentioned in San Antonio is owned by Bill Gates. And as that, the Texas legislature is going to do that because it's going to pull so much electricity, which is causing skyrocketing of electric price. This has nothing to do with using your light more. It's because of the data center that was placed about 50 miles outside of the city. He needed to offset that. And so what he wanted to do, and I don't know if he's still doing it, is insert a carbon sequestration facility outside, on the coast of Texas, which is going to cause more water crisis to an all area that needs the water. And so it's just compounding from there. Right. And is involved, Teal is involved, all of these people are sequestering the water, now to the point that they are wanting water rights to be given to them, to be given to the people. So now, water, it's never free, but they are now going to control the water as well.
Of course they will. Yeah, I'm not going to make it very long, man, because I definitely got to drink a lot of water. But no,
let's say don't let Austin get a hold of that water. He'll take it all. He'll confiscate their water and drink all of it.
Hell yeah, dude. Nobody owns that water, baby. But but yeah, I just think that so much of this is like, in my mind with these, I think it's really interesting to see how much of it becomes a harnessing of your energy in terms of just many of these. I think the emotional overreaction is essentially, as I mentioned before, I think it's elicited on by design in order to now this can go into even the occult context of the Son of Sam, right, which essentially is, the ultimate sacrifice, the ultimate evil is to hopefully subconsciously essentially provoke individuals at a large scale to subconsciously engage in an occult ritual, a blood sacrifice, without even knowing it, unbeknownst to them. It's a sort of subconscious engagement in the ritual itself will help with the harnessing of the energy and the power that's necessary to make the ultimate sacrifice, I guess, is what the context was of what they were hoping to kind of, which is why they were committing many of the killings, like outside the Eliphas Club, which is Eliphas Levi, obviously is a direct connection there to it. It was by design that they wanted to evoke that occult context, and I think that, and it happened on right around Valentine's Day, which is another occult holiday. And I think that so often that's not really even a part of what people are kind of like considering paying attention to, unless you're swimming in circles such as us, right, where you've been kind of overexposed to the patterns to where it's impossible not to connect them and recognize the fact that they exist. But that's where I think that you do have, like, they're attempting to now. Clearly, I think through an emotional state of mind, you lose the ability to critically think through things, and that's obviously a major sort of hopeful. I think it's a part of what they hope to achieve within that context, right? And I also think that I mean, even in context, I keep bringing up Minneapolis, but when in the aftermath of that, you even had Melania talk about some sort of pre-crime situation as a solution, and she legitimately called for preemptive intervention. And this is so strange because it is interesting. I remember Nancy Reagan played much more of a pivotal role, than people realize, right?
I was just going to say it was like Nancy Reagan in the 80s all over again, except
exactly.
drugs.
And you know what? She it's interesting that she tried to get life-saving medical care for Roy Cohn when he was dying of AIDS, which I thought was crazy. And it made a lot of sense because the kosher mafia was directly affiliated. I forget the name of the production company that was directly tied into running Reagan at the time. I forget the name of it now, but at some point we'll talk about that as well, I would have to imagine. But it's crazy because it ties directly into Roy Cohn, his direct affiliation with kind of the power structure, this long-standing human honeypot operation, as far as the strategic playbook that they covertly implement to kind of compromise their political assets. And I mean, you even have in Vegas with that recent cybersecurity expert for Israel who lured that retarded 10-year-old or whatever to commit sexual acts online or something, and then he just escapes accountability and gets flown back to Israel. And it turns out that you have a chief of police who just after all of that takes place, the chief of police in Vegas, he happens to go down for allegedly making false arrests and child pornography, which I thought, okay, now it's possible, or they could have maybe just planted that shit on his hard drive, and all of a sudden that maybe a chief of police who had some integrity and was trying to, follow up on certain,
Right.
Legitimate evidence, was silenced in that moment. I view that occasionally happening as well, right?
That's another thing, not to deviate, but off of these people that are, alleged to have committed school shootings, crimes, or anything like that. Oh, that was the fourth thing in common is all their hard drives are scrubbed.
Yep.
Somehow, miraculously.
Mm-hmm.
But yes,
It's
what
so
you're saying, it could have easily been planted. Who knows? Or he had it. Who knows?
Yeah, and I think that when you have, and then also it was a judge, a female judge. She claimed that in Vegas, I had the note somewhere, but either way, it doesn't matter. I remember enough of it. She basically claimed that in Vegas, that she had her child, right, teenage child, was working at a retail store where she claimed there was a child sex trafficking operation that was being utilized through this retail store, and that basically they were targeting the children of politicians, of local politicians and officials in the area, and that was how they would essentially blackmail the authorities in the area, the local authorities, was through this sort of honeypot operation at a retail store. And that this judge comes out with the evidence. She claims her daughter was a part of this, was actually working there for a time, and then she commits suicide, right? The judge, worst case of suicide you've ever seen, right? She basically, it's just insane to witness that all happened right after the cybersecurity expert for Israel gets caught up in Vegas on essentially, child sex charges or pedophilic charges of some kind. I can't remember what they were, except for luring this child, obviously, but still, I think you have that connection. And then I forgot the Melania. Interesting note there is that she basically says, First Lady Melania Trump, she used the shooting in Minneapolis to call for preemptive intervention to identify potential school shooters. Early warning signs are often evident, with many individuals exhibiting concerning behaviors and making violent threats online prior to their actions, she noted. To prevent future tragedies, it is crucial we look into behavioral threat assessments across all levels of society, beginning in our homes, extending through school districts, and of course, social media platforms. Being aware of these warning signs and acting quickly can save lives and make American communities safer. So she instantly is calling for pre-crime policing and surveillance to essentially be introduced into the home. And I think that it's just par for the course, and the same sort of glowing family backgrounds that connect to all of these various, in my mind, were far more likely programmed to patsy than programmed to kill in more cases than not. And that is obviously James Holmes is my favorite example. But then Omar Mateen with his father, Siddiqui Mateen, those connections are fascinating. And I had mentioned how obviously Eric Harris and same as Adam Lanza, right? You have this very same sort of playbook that tends to resurface over time, and with Omar, it's so nuts that Omar was working at G4S, right? That security contractor, which was technically Wackenhut, right? Which originally was this paramilitary organization that essentially was tied back to many different scandals, including the Marc Dutroux affair, right, and essentially being responsible for the years of lead at a certain level, and these domestic destabilization tactics of mass shootings and domestic bombings and things of that nature to destabilize the political elements in society and keep the population in a state of fear. And so Wackenhut had a joint contract, a joint venture with the Cabazon Indian Reservation. And so that connects directly into Iran-Contra, Danny Castellero's Octopus, the Promise Software scandal, because apparently, according to Michael Riconosciuto, the Promise Software was provided with that very back door on the Cabazon Indian Reservation, where the CIA was running these esoteric weapons experiments, and that's what they called them, with a rail gun and things of that nature, which is just insane. They were flying in illegal Mexican immigrants
to test these experiments.
Dude, yeah, I swear, they were flying them in to cook methamphetamine on the reservation and distribute that shit domestically. Yeah,
Wow.
and
Cooks, that's why.
Mm-hmm.
That was
hey, cartel land. Right. That's what they say.
That's
if
you don't see it, the food ain't good. I'm just gonna.
Right. Hey, I am telling you, as soon as I saw that fentanyl was coming across the Mexican border, I just thought of cartel land. It was the exact same situation where the CIA had a domestic or clandestine operation set up with utilizing the cartels to help facilitate these drug trafficking operations into the domestic U.S. And it provides plausible deniability for one, but that was another reason why all of these guns in Operation Fast and Furious are just found all over the world, even in the Paris and the Bataclan and the Paris attacks there, right? And it's just crazy that they consistently reveal themselves through utilizing these criminal syndicates and organizations. Yeah, I mean, the only time you see cartels get cracked down on is when they're capping competition. I swear, that's the only reason.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, they're controlling the outcome in every way.
100%. They became controlled after they took down Escobar.
I was going to say, when they took down Escobar, that's when the Cali cartel that's when they got targeted, right?
No, well, from what I understood was that the Cali cartel agreed to help the Northerns take Escobar.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
They thought, these people think that, well, we'll control them, and it's just a fight. It's just a finish. Like they're, that's.
When I saw, like, it's just I'm losing my mind when it comes down to these obvious manufactured convenient patsies involved with these ridiculous mass shootings specifically. Because I remember the last time that I came on, I was basically questioning the concept of a serial killer, and I was mentioning at least in a way, I think that was it's something that I can't really steer away from very often, but I was questioning the concept of a serial killer. I was spotlighting the sort of how the urban myth of a snuff film has been very much kind of conflated with that of the satanic panic, this ridiculous it's the same as like the pedo panic, as we've been discussing recently, right, where it's essentially the pedo panic is basically just the recycled tactic of, oh, you're in a moral hysteria. This is a ridiculous kind of conspiratorial outrage, when in reality, it's just, I think the general public is, at least there is something valuable happening, where there seems to be far more of the average person is willing to admit that, there seems to be a very well insulated class of pedophiles who can pull the strings of modern society in ways that, should be at least acknowledged more than it's not. And I think that's why I get so frustrated every 4 years when people seem to go back to grounds, their baseline, where they forget the past 4 years and act as if it has any real effect going forward. You know what I mean? And so therefore, it's the most important election of our lives, right? Every 4 years, which is just like, my God, calm down.
Negative.
It feels like this naive, childlike, black hat, white hat, misinterpretation of reality, and it's very upsetting to witness it. But honestly, it's just so I find that the utilization of this, moral hysteria, and the claim, right, that obviously this is a moral panic, but in reality, I think it's
Well,
obviously
it's the same moral panic as we saw with serial killers. How you said, where the serial killers were captured. Once school shootings came in, serial killers went on retirement.
They just disappeared.
Just like
That's
COVID
legitimate.
came, and the flu went into retirement.
I was legit about to say that. I was going to say serial killers disappeared at around the same time mass
They're
shooters
claiming
started
their
to
401
surface.
and they're on.
Absolutely.
I wonder why we're intended to believe this is some grand coincidence, man. It's so
It's not.
it-
It's not. Yeah.
absolutely not.
One
Did
thing,
you ever hear? Go ahead,
ahead.
Nick.
No, go ahead, because I wanted to kind of switch it over to something a little bit different. But so go ahead before I do that.
Okay. I was just I wasn't sure if you guys have ever well, there's one thing I definitely want to talk about with Eric Harris and the strange connection with Columbine there, but the also I was wondering if you guys had heard of James Wesley Howell and his strange connections to the Pulse nightclub and Omar Mateen, and this blew me away, and it was something that was like, it almost reminded me of like the Stephen Unruh effect, right? From the inmate who was in the holding cells near James Holmes, who's like, yeah, he couldn't stop talking about neurolinguistic programming and how this evil therapist programmed him to kill, right? And it's just so nuts to actually hear that happen, and especially when you find out who his therapist was, and that he, along with Adam Lanza, called his therapist the mind rapist, right? And oh yeah, they both referred to their therapist the exact same way, right? And this is very interesting to me because obviously I believe that the therapist, I believe, is the one who sexually abused Adam Lanza, right? And then with James Holmes, he was in therapy specifically with this individual who she glows like the sun to me, and it was just before he drops out, right? And just before he begins to show these radicalized signs, right? And you listen to her, you read the character evals. Yeah, no, there's only one psychiatrist who was acting in good faith, who seemed to correct the record when attempting to go on record and obviously combat that of the official narrative that was coming out surrounding his actual therapist, who's making these false claims about him, in my mind, and seeding the narrative for how we could believe that James had a schizophrenic break. He was it's far more than that. And you see, he was in a state of dissociative. He was in a fully dissociative state in the courtroom, man. I mean, his eyes are so extraordinarily dilated. It's insane. And then I have the video too pulled up. We can show it at some point if you want. But it's like they're hand puppets, right? That he's like in holding cell, and he's got the what's it called, where they're running ballistics for the fingerprint to see if, as far as they're trying to see if there's gunpowder residue on your fingers, things of that nature. And so they put his hands in these bags, right? And he's just sitting there in this insanely like he's obviously in a state of they've either given him the truth serum because it was very interesting, honestly, because he's obviously in a dissociative state in this moment, and he starts playing hand puppets with the bags. And it's so crazy, bro. And I'm not even playing.
I'm sorry.
No, I know.
I'd probably do the same thing.
Probably.
In that state of mind. I mean,
dude, honestly, with James, man, I mean, come on now. It's like he specifically, and when you look at what Dr. Robert Duncan said about when he was in the courtroom, it's very strange, because he and by the way, he's a psychiatric patient with several strange pharmaceutical drug prescriptions that were all redacted in the court documents, right? Yeah, that's so crazy to me. So you also have him showing these signs directly of DID split personality while he's in the courtroom, and essentially they claim that basically during the trial, right? Well, if you look at James Holmes, as far as the health services, where he's a medical student, right, of Anschutz mental health, or psychiatric patient of the medical director of Anschutz Student Mental Health Services, but he's attending Anschutz, right? And he's actually staying on campus when he's getting shit delivered to him, which I thought was insane, that none of that was allegedly red flagged, right? Well, he's literally getting made massive boxes of ammunition, like all of these weapon things of that nature, sent to the actual Anschutz, right? The medical campus where he's staying, and he's a psychiatric patient. Yes, this all happened just before he drops out of his neuroscience. This is just so insane that all of this plays into to James and obviously the lead up to the alleged shooting. But again, so the judge appointed to the Colorado State Public Defender, as far as he appointed a public defender for Holmes' defense, and Holmes' defense attorney stated in a motion that he was in fact a psychiatric patient of the medical director of Anschutz Student Mental Health Services prior to the Aurora shooting. So the prosecutor just disagreed with that claim. But 4 days after the release of the defense attorney's motion, the judge required this information to be blacked out. So it looks like they wanted to keep that quiet, obviously. And then you have the Aurora police seizing 4 prescription bottles and immunization records when they searched James Holmes' apartment in July of that year, in 2012. And so obviously these disclosures were all heavily redacted, and they claim it was for doctor-patient confidentiality, and they would not reveal what prescription the bottles were for, or whether prosecutors intended to use them as evidence either. And of course they didn't. And so it plays into it. It's so crazy to me that falls into place so perfectly. And then obviously you have him looking dazed and confused in this dissociative state in the courtroom itself. And it seems as if he was diagnosed with split personality, right? And then you have the Colorado judge decide that he wants to administer a truth serum to James, right? Which is unprecedented. This is completely against the Fifth Amendment rights, so that, clearly, and violates your Fifth Amendment rights at every level. So you have state psychiatrists who were willing to subject him to drugs that will help him remember his state of mind at the time of the shootings, which I instantly think of Sirhan, obviously, because they put him through a hypnotic trance. The defense and the prosecution the fact of that he was so suggestible just boggles my mind as well, right? And it goes to show that I think he definitely was in range mode, seeing targets in front of his eyes in the pantry of the Ambassador that night when Thane Eugene Cesar shot RFK at point blank range. It's like we know at this point who was involved with that, but James claims he was being surveilled by the FBI, obviously, leading up to this. It's another reason why he said he paused before he went back into the theater, because he said he was hoping the FBI, the agents who had been surveilling him, would stop him from going through with the mission. And he continued to call it the mission. And he said that he had to go through with the mission or he would self-destruct. It was as if
You know who
What?
also used the word mission just really quickly? Whenever mentioning Elon's girlfriend, what's her name? The one that's the artist, whatever, skinny girl.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, I just tell him I'll never interrupt the mission, that I still believe in the mission and the mission and the mission. Anyway,
Oh,
You're
sorry.
talking about Grimes.
And Grimes, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I know it was as far as when I read through his own, like he had his journal, which reminded me very much of Sirhan's journal, because it to me was, you're reinforcing your programming in a hypnotic trance. You're in a hypno-programmed state of mind, and you're writing RFK must die, RFK must be killed, RFK must be assassinated. You're not, like, that is it to me. He doesn't have any recollection of ever writing anything in this journal. It's just insane. And they had symbols in that journal too, very much seem to resemble that of so he's working at that local racetrack. That local racetrack was ran by the mob at the time, and people don't realize that clearly there was an active alliance between the CIA and utilizing organized crime hitmen to effectively commit political assassinations, targeted assassinations, things of that nature. And that's why Thane Eugene Cesar was working for what's his name, Howard Hughes. He was essentially underneath Howard Hughes' umbrella in a way, who Nixon himself as VP tasked with setting up all those clandestine black sites domestically in the U.S. to train up Cuban exiles, right, to allegedly commit, I think many different sort of criminal offenses. I think not only were they being trained up and sent on international conflicted as far as missions themselves internationally, I think they were also clearly being tasked with domestic destabilization operations as well. And that definitely goes to show with you remember the Hand of Death cult and Henry Lee Lucas, right? I mean, he's my favorite example of the Dr. Thomas Narut, that individual who he really put it the best way in my mind, as far as this very long-standing operational, entrenched operationally, as far as this network and how it functions. And I believe that the same goes for, I had mentioned recently, Claudia Mullen, right? Claudia Mullen is the girl who in the 1950s, early 1950s, she's brought into Sidney Gottlieb's network. Alan Dulles, all these individuals are Dr. Ted Heath from Tulane University. All these individuals are he was specifically utilizing a 133 bed ward unit in the East Louisiana Hospital, I believe is the name of it, which was directly had a contract with the Army for running these mind control experiments. And that was when they were utilizing it's really crazy, honestly, how deep because I mean they're implanting like the Dr. Robert Heath is insane. He, as far as what he was doing at Tulane, he was at the time, he's legitimately giving a pseudoneurotic schizophrenic patient mescaline, right? And then he's taking the patient through a heaven and hell journey on the compound. And it turns out that you had a doctor by the name of Paul Hoke who followed this up with the transorbital leucotomy or lobotomy, right? And Hoke, he gave a patient LSD, a local anesthetic, and then proceeded to remove pieces of his cerebral cortex, asking at various moments whether the patient's perceptions were changing. And I think that just goes to show, obviously, that when you have Dr. Robert Heath from Tulane, as early as 1955, giving patients LSD while he had electrodes implanted deep inside their brains, that's what was effectively, being conducted at this moment when you have a Claudia Mullen brought into the fold. And this is where things take a strange turn, obviously, even worse as far as potentially utilizing. And it's interesting because it seems like it was even a CIA sub-project at one point. And they claim that Richard Helms was tasked with, if you recall, during the committee hearings, right? Church Committee, Warren Commission, during those committee hearings, you had thousands and thousands of documents prior to the hearings being held, destroyed within the CIA internally the order was given directly by Richard Helms. Now, what documents do you think were prioritized in the destruction of those files? It was definitely pertaining to utilizing child prostitutes in human honeypot operations. In my mind, that's what they would have to focus on. Get rid of those documents first. We can never let that see the light, obviously, right? And then also, how are you going to compromise the individuals who are running the hearings, right? Because you can't actually have true and full transparency. We can't allow for that to take place, right? We need to control the disclosure, right? And that's exactly what they did. And so I believe that you had Frank Church, who was sexually blackmailed by Claudia Mullen by design. And this has all been revealed now, as far as if you're imagining Frank Church is clearly involved as the head of the church committee hearings, who's apparently bringing transparency to the CIA and to the public regarding the CIA and these domestic covert operations. And in reality, he was already fully compromised by a child prostitution operation ran by Alan Dulles and Dr. Sidney Gottlieb. And this all traces back to David Ferry's time hanging around Tulane with his little boys from the Civil Air Patrol, who he's obviously hypnotizing and sexually assaulting, and taking them to Cuba to like on operations, which I thought was insane. And
I think Louisiana, there's much more of a Louisiana connection to many of these things that people are overlooking.
I
Lot
agree.
of them links to different things we're talking about today, things other people have talked about. I think there's a lot of connections in Louisiana that not a lot of people are missing. One thing, but now that I have the mic, one thing I wanted to say is that when you were talking about some of these truth serums that are used on some of these people and how these people are basically induced this like split personality or schizophrenia induction or what have you. And Nick and I have talked at length about this, about schizophrenia and breaking, and Stanford's done a lot of investigations into this. One of the things that I kind of wanted to insert into this episode is that the cocktail that's used, I think it's GHB, let me see, because that's why I was looking at my phone. It's GHB, GHB, alcohol, amphetamine. That cocktail, it seems, minor, right, on the surface. It seems very benign on the surface. But when you start looking at that specific cocktail and you keep finding it in all of these SFK who have been found in the water, when you look at the same cocktail that was found in the kid in California who was the whistleblower for OpenAI, when you look at these mass shooters that they do some sort of secondary autopsy, and it is a cocktail that's also used, it's also found in them, it starts to kind of form a pattern.
Absolutely. I think that when I did the psychopath machine, I thought that I really didn't have much of like an understanding of potentially what substances were relied upon, and then also which ones were kind of they sort of weeded out the more just inefficient substances and pharmaceutical agents that they were attempting to utilize just based on efficiency, I think, and it was strange to me though, because this came up and in that specific context in the psychopath machine, which was about this facility in Canada called the Oak Ridge facility. And the Oak Ridge facility it's really nuts. It was open in 1933 and it was designated under the Mental Hospitals Act, but it seemed as if, this was directly affiliated with the Montreal experiments, and they were utilizing these kind of criminal institutions and like these psychological mental wards, basically, that they were kind of utilizing as an avenue to utilize test subjects, right? That didn't have any real just defense mechanism in place because they were institutionalized, obviously. And but yeah, you had an example is doctors tortured patients at Oak Ridge, at this maximum security mental health facility in Ontario. They were tortured by medical doctors over a 17-year period in unethical and degrading human experiments. And this was all ruled by a judge in a lawsuit in 2017. And I couldn't believe that it all sort of like was coming out in terms of the techniques on the patients between 66 to 83 specifically. Included solitary confinement as treatment and as punishment, administration of hallucinogens, delirium-producing drugs, including LSD, and brainwashing methods developed by the CIA, of course. And this is all in a court sort of judge ruling, which I found interesting as hell. But it goes further than that, because it seems like Oak Ridge doctors were utilizing this very radical version of therapy, which was seemingly the reason why they call it the psychopath machine, is because basically what they realized is that, yes, they could sort of create a psychopath from out of whole cloth, right? Out from a basic individual who didn't show those characteristics whatsoever prior to the experimentation. But they also found that it was far more efficient to just target individuals in the general public who show signs and characteristics that would be very valuable in this context, right? And then help kind of escalate those primal right sort of emotional over what's the emotional characteristics that are over, it seemed like they're being overrepresented in these specific right examples of these psychopathic individuals. And yeah, I think one of the public school avenues of that is the gifted program, obviously, where they would find out which individuals would be of utmost kind of operational value. And it was another way, like Barry Seal, I think he got noticed because he had all these various qualities. He had like a photographic memory, things of that nature. These are the qualities that they look for in an individual to then kind of bring them into the fold and see how they could become a useful asset in terms of the intelligence apparatus but in the context of the psychopath machine, they were using LSD, of course, but then they're utilizing these various brainwashing techniques. And it turns out that there are 3 programs: the DDT, Defense Disruptive Therapy, the Motivation Attitude Participation Program, which is the MAP program. Then you had the Total Encounter Capsule program. This is very strange. They would strip them nude and essentially tie you to a psychopath. So you would have individuals who were just, let's say, institutionalized by their doctor was one aspect of it. They didn't even have to have a criminal record. Another was, because this was a hospital for the criminally insane. And so you had individuals who are committing insane, like, let's say, pedophilic murder, right? There's one example of that, right, where you have an individual who is legitimately, raped and killed a child, right? And honestly, the examples are sort of endless, but the level of scopolamine use is what caught my attention there, because you have under the DDT, a patient would be administered a combination of these delirium-producing, psychosis-producing, or mind-altering drugs, including combinations of alcohol, dexamethasone, dexedrine, dextroamphetamine, imipramine. I don't know. Imipramine. I don't know. I don't even know what that is. LSD-25, largactyl, methadone, nosinane, Ritalin, scopolamine, and sodium amytal. And those were specifically utilized as a sort of recipe. And scopolamine is obviously known widely as the devil's breath. And its mind-altering effects have been essentially utilized for recreational and occult purposes, right? And you see the effects being studied as a truth serum in interrogations in the early 20th century. But the investigations were later halted due to the extreme side effects of scopolamine. And so you can apparently render a victim unconscious for 24 hours or more with certain ingestion doses. And then in large doses, it can cause respiratory failure and death. So you can commit a legitimate murder at a high dose with scopolamine. But most commonly, it's utilized in South America, apparently, where you have, at least according to the data set, which clearly we can't rely upon very well, but this is estimates as far as the number of annual scopolamine incidents, which are allegedly around 50,000 approximately. And you have it's very strange because you have a victim. One common and particular dangerous method apparently used is to rob a victim in through the use of scopolamine, and is usually administered in liquid or powdered form in foods and beverages. And you can basically like, what they claim happens is that you have no free will once you're dosed with scopolamine. You lose all ability, and you're entirely suggestible, in a suggestible state of mind. So they can dose you with scopolamine in a nightclub and tell you to take them to an ATM and empty their bank account, and they will willfully go through with that process and have no memory of it. And I think that that's very interesting, especially, I've been talking about occasionally in this context, Blink Twice recently, because that movie that came out with Channing Tatum and what's her name, Zoe Kravitz, was allegedly the director, along with a few others. But it essentially it utilizes this kind of core concept of induced amnesia, and I think that it's important for people to realize how just consistent this tends to occur in the criminal enterprise. And obviously the direct relationship to Epstein, right, I think is major as far as the plot line itself of Blink Twice. Channing Tatum, this billionaire tech mogul, all right, he has his own private island, and he sort of seduces these individuals to come with him back to the private island, and essentially just engage in this debauchery and this just sort of degenerate lifestyle of waking up every morning and just partying by the pool all day long, and then eating this glorious meal, and then ingesting this strange pharmaceutical psychedelic compound. I believe MDMA was involved at a level as well, and then losing memory throughout the course of the night, right? And it seemed like it was very interesting because you would only get sort of these fractured, short clips of what potentially happened, right? And the night before, and then the main character, the female who was lured to the island, would wake up with mud under her nails and not have any sort of recollection as to why. And so I found it interesting, though, because this is obviously a memory altering drug that was being utilized in the plot line, and it's this definitely it's pharmacological behavior modification, right? The erasure of trauma in order to utilize this sort of I think it's a way to obviously facilitate the abuse, and a way to remain unaccountable, obviously, because if you can fracture off the mind into not having a memory of the endured abuse, then I think it definitely it's in the scope of the overall criminal enterprise. It clearly applies in a very well. And so, but this is clearly a memory altering drug derived from a flower that's native to the island, right? And it's interesting because there are basically, it sort of allows for, even, I remember this moment in the film where essentially there's one of her best friend that came to the island with her just goes missing one night, right? And no one knew where she was, and they're all hanging out by the pool, and then she, for some reason, it's kind of triggered in her mind, and she remembers her friend, and she says, "Where is she?" Right? Where's her name? And I can't remember her name. And basically, the other girls around her look at her completely seriously and ask her who that is, as if they've never met the girl, right? And they don't have any recollection of ever meeting her, don't remember her ever even being on the island. And that's like the moment in the film where like I turned to my wife and I was just like, what the fuck, right? Because instantly you have that sort of evoked reaction, which is just, I think, a part of it was very much, I think, valuable as far as just introducing this concept to the general public alone of how you would utilize an agent, a pharmaceutical agent, to induce amnesia in a subject that's being sexually abused, right? And that alone, it was through a perfume that they were applying each day and during the morning, that they would obviously utilize this a flower native to the island that would cause the induced amnesia. And then what was it that brought them out of that trance? It was snake venom. And that's why the staff on the local island who are working for the billionaire mogul are tasked with going around the island and killing off the snakes, which would legitimately cause the individual victims to have their memory flood back, where they would have memory of the abuse taking place. And anyway, it just, again, it all sort of like molds together in this ultimate kind of recipe of how you can deliberately just escape accountability from the most, I think, consequential form of abuse you could ever engage in, that has the ability to legitimately disrupt and fracture the mind of a human being, right? And break them of what I had mentioned before, the very concept of free will. Like, if you don't have free will, what are you?
Yeah,
You're
right.
not even a human being anymore at that point, right? You're a slave. And so in that way, it's just, I feel like anytime you get a pop culture reference, as much as I hate the conclusion of that movie, it was extremely valuable to introduce that concept to the general public, as I mentioned. And yeah, the core concept reminded me instantly of scopolamine. That obviously is the main reason that I bring it up, and the fact that Sirhan goes and performs the monkey routine and a hypnotic trance, and then as he jumps down from the bars and he's brought out of the hypnotic state, he has no memory of performing the monkey routine by the expert hypnotist who placed the post-hypnotic suggestion set of instructions in his mind. And that the Manchurian Candidate has been overwhelmingly achieved, I think. And another reason why we really need to question reality itself many times and over, honestly. And that's why you look at cases like I found an occult connection to Columbine I didn't realize. And you consider the idea of, like, I watched Bill Cooper way back in the day. I watched his reaction to Columbine, and it kind of it really broke my heart a little bit in a way, but at the same time, I felt, it was overwhelmingly genuine, I thought. And he basically says that he tried to relate Columbine to the rites of Ishtar, to Molech and human sacrifice in the springtime. He legitimately said that the ancient teachings of the mystery schools are responsible for essentially this, in at least for the blood ritual sacrifice of children in the springtime, being when they're going back to school, things of that nature, is exactly when the Minneapolis mass shooting happened. It's the same exact moment in time that Bill Cooper is referencing, as far as when they would prioritize, right, this sort of bloodshed, this specific form. And it sort of hearkening back to the ancient teachings and the rites of Ishtar. And I thought that was very interesting, as far as Bill Cooper specifically, considering that idea. And I mean, he was driven to tears in that moment. Just, it was directly after Columbine. He's just trying to react in the moment, like kind of give his opinion as well as he could, right? Just thinking through some of the details at the time. And yeah, it was heart-wrenching. But what I found out is that, and this really did blow my mind, because obviously we know that Eric Harris's father, he has some very strange connections to the military, right? And his name's Wayne Harris. He's a former Air Force pilot. He's stationed at Plattsburgh Air Force Base, which this is rumored to have been the linkage to the covert operations, and where he was receiving the mind control manuals that what's her name? Susan Klebold. I think that was the name of Dylan's mom. yeah, she claimed that she saw mind control manuals right at Wayne Harris's home, at the home of Eric Harris's father, and that specifically really just, she would not be silent as far as that was concerned, and so the family, they end up moving to Littleton, Colorado, which I remember it was essentially kind of described as being an entire safe community. The town of Littleton itself, like, consider a CIA safe house. Well, consider a CIA safe community where you have all of these retirees from the intelligence apparatus or the military industrial complex who allegedly go to retire. But in reality, they're providing this sort of strategic foothold operationally for a green light go domestic operations, and that they will provide and facilitate the cover up in real time as the events occur. And so Littleton, the town itself, was allegedly one of these CIA safe communities. And so this is why you had this U.S. Major General on the ground, and the FEMA comms vans that were recognized and at least reported to have been there. And then you have Wayne Harris, Eric's father. He takes a job at this place called Flight Safety Services in Englewood, Colorado, right? And this is a company that worked closely with Lockheed Martin, which obviously they're very much involved in that geographical area as well. I forget which facility is there for Lockheed, but and so this offers pilot training and flight simulation software. And so it seems as if you have direct connections with Wayne Harris there. And obviously Sue Klebold, like I mentioned, claims she had witnessed the military documents and brainwashing techniques being found in the Harris home. And so I definitely think once you look into more of the more interesting connections to it's the Lockheed Martin factory, which was constructed in the 1950s by the Pentagon, and it was in Littleton, Colorado as well. And you have a bunch of rocket and satellite contracts and classified government projects that were taking place there. And then obviously the death education program, right? When they which is fascinating stuff, right? As far as if you wanted to seed, and I was reading about the degenerate sort of reports of this degeneracy involved at Columbine leading up to all of this. And one of the survivors, who was later, anyway, it's very interesting what happens to this survivor. But the name's Mark Taylor, right? And this individual is claimed to have witnessed the open use of drugs, right? Classes that consisted of watching MTV, teachers coaching students on how to have better sex, right? And discussion of witchcraft, suggesting that you had this sort of occult trauma programming that was being involved in Columbine. And this was according to not only Mark Taylor, as far as being one of the Columbine survivors, this was being reinforced by multiple survivors from Columbine. And it's just strange to me when you look at what they were claiming was happening, because obviously you have what ended up happening to Mark Taylor, this survivor from Columbine who makes these claims. Well, it turns out that they end up chemically lobotomized in 2008 and institutionalized at the Aspen Point, apparently, after an alleged mental breakdown in a bookstore. So it looks like, just like all of these other cases, there was a fundamental cover-up in the works, and you had assets or just legitimate victim witnesses and things of that nature who were being silenced, right? And it would at the very least, it would reinforce the sort of death education program that was being fundamentally embraced at the school as well. Because I find that interesting that they're actually, and it seemed to me like it was very occult in nature as well. They're taking them to morgues and having them see dead bodies, and they also this student by the name of Tara Becker, she was a student at Columbine in 1985, and it turns out that she gives this speech at a pro-family conference in Colorado, And she tells them, she brings a booklet she had helped to compile for one of her classes at Columbine. And it was called The Masquerade, and was full of subliminal pictures and prose. And Tara explained how she had been taught to use the hidden double meaning, subliminals. And now she had focused so much of her time and attention on death that she herself had tried to commit suicide. And then you had Tara's testimony, right, was sort of distributed, and you had this 2020, right, was scheduled where they decided to do a segment on death education specifically, which aired at Columbine High School in 1990. And that alone is very strange, right? Just before Columbine would effectively take place a few years later. And so Tara explained that the subject of death was integrated into many of the courses at her high school. She said that death was made to look glamorous, that living was hard, and the reincarnation would solve their problems. Students were told that they would always return to a much better life form. They would return to the oversoul and become like God. After one of the students at her school committed suicide, they decided to have a suicide talking day. And allegedly all the classes were forced to talk about death. And so class assignments were for students to write their own obituaries and suicide notes. And so they were told to trust their own judgment in choosing whether to live or die. I mean, that sounds like you're legitimately this is mind control programming at a very, and they're also implementing these very interesting concepts surrounding death. Right. And I think that matters with all of this, because they sort of immortalize, these acts of violence in a certain way. And that's why him claiming Valhalla, right, Kash Patel, it makes me, it very much goes back to some of these ancient beliefs of where, it's a sort of glory on the battlefield, right? This is where you achieve immortality. And I think that so much of the violence itself is romanticized in that context. And I think it's outside of the, our ability to sort of conceptualize and comprehend in modern time, because we're so just far distanced from the real just ultimate consequences. I mean, if more of the general public had, let's just say, had a more direct relationship with their mortality, then you might have a sort of different conceptual outcome, but anyway, it's nuts to me that they were attempting to have them write their own obituaries and suicide notes, right? And suicide as a means of solving some of their problems, which is very strange. And one of them being, she says she also wanted to die to help relieve the planet of overpopulation. This was a part of something I thought, all right, cool. So climate change and the overpopulation myth is how they could weave that into the conscious mind as well of a young child who's glorifying death in a certain way. But
yeah. Well, this has come, this has kind of become part of society, especially I think up in Canada. If you're upset or you're kind of feeling down, they have these pods you can just go and kill yourself in.
Right. Did you see that one that was allegedly illegal? It was like they had one of the suicide pods like out in the woods and it was just found, and they claimed that they illegally killed themselves in a suicide pod. I just thought it was hilarious. Like, man, I don't think suicide should be illegal. I think it's ridiculous, but I think suicide's also ridiculous. So that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
But
they have that. I think that forest out in Japan, maybe, where all those folks go to kill themselves, but it's like a respected place where death is welcomed.
Yeah, it's almost
it's like you go there, that you're going there and you're not leaving. Right. Until you have people like Logan Paul's dumbass go and laugh at dead bodies and exploit,
oh yeah,
people's culture.
I forgot he did that shit. That was like his original introduction onto the scene, huh?
That could have been a ritual in itself, dude. I don't know. That guy's he may be compromised.
Oh, I would imagine if you're making that much money and you've had that much success, it's hard not to imagine. But honestly, there's Oh yeah, let me show you that actual interrogation of the puppets. That was so crazy. I'll show you guys that video real quick. This is when Radix came on, right? Radix Verum, and she put together the video for us that day, and it's so crazy. But
Puppets.
Is that yours? This hoodie's made out of his cup and his water bottle. Okay. All right,
he's just doing random
Okay,
shit
I
that doesn't
need
make
to,
sense.
I need to have you put these on your hands. What? What? All in. All in. You know what this is for? It's what I'm asking. Huh? What do you think it's for? Popcorn. For popcorn?
Popcorn.
Could be used for popcorn. But not right now.
Dude's tripping, bro.
Yep.
Fucking way.
Right.
Dude.
Dude, it's so strange, right?
Dude, yeah.
He's focused.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
He's
in that
tripping up
moment he had these two entities talking to each other through his
Dude,
handbag, you know?
it goes faster at the end. I don't know why.
What the?
It's trip, right?
Let's bug that out.
Yeah, man. That's
You know,
strange behavior.
one thing that I was going to say is that so James Holmes had booby trapped his apartment, correct? And
Yeah.
he
With the
it was
bombs.
the bomb.
They
But
looked like
didn't-
straight out of Mario Kart, right? I just thought it was fun.
didn't get to fulfill their entire plan. They were also supposed to detonate a bomb, correct?
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. That was the that Columbine. Yeah, definitely. It
So
was
there's
In the
very
always, like,
lunchroom, right?
Bombing.
Yeah,
How do
those
you-
two propane tanks didn't go off.
exactly.
And so it's kind of like, I don't know, the MO, the same. It's like the same MO. And then
Absolutely.
Holmes, which ties into a lot of what Nick has said before, or the episodes we've done before, is that James Holmes's dad was a mathematician, scientist.
Oh, man. Just wait with
That's
that
Stanford,
one.
right?
I got that connection, and connects to the LIBOR scandal, by the way, with Adam Lanza's father, who were both set to testify for the LIBOR scandal, right? Which is a major international rigging of the international finance rate, which is so
Yes.
fascinating, right?
Yes.
That even happened. But
Yes.
but yeah, and this is all happening in 2012 too. That they're set to testify just before both their children are green light go in a mass shooting program to Patsy scenario, and all of a sudden they're not going to testify any longer.
I don't think these kids meant to do what they did. I think they were hijacked.
Man,
because
James said,
something, and now their kids are taken. I mean, what do cartels do, right? They attack the family.
absolutely.
That was the one thing that what the mafia never did, right? They never attacked family. It was
Mhm.
always whatever. Cartels was like, it's all fair game.
Yeah,
And
that's so interesting.
then
think-
now you've basically taken the children of these two men that would have brought down so much.
And sacrifice them.
Thinkable.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
like taking your firstborn and slaying him on the altar.
That is the altar of the imperial war machine, right? In a certain level.
It's
Yeah.
what Abraham never could do.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I mean, that is a great way to put it. And his neuroscience DARPA connections are ridiculous alone. But one of my the most interesting parts about the therapist, I found so crazy because it connects directly to Adam Lanza. And you have clearly, it seems like he was, and he says himself, right? If I told them, then I would be locked up and could not carry out the mission. I had to complete it in order to not suicide. That's what he says. Quote,
Whoa.
Mr. Holmes explained that the mind rapist was the psychiatrist, right? He had to fulfill his programming or the kill switch will be triggered. So coincidentally, James Holmes, he's not the only mass shooter to refer to his therapist as the mind rapist. The other happened to be Adam Lanza. And so according to Peter Langman, an expert on the psychology of school shooters and other perpetrators of mass violence, in Lanza's view, growing up in a culture and learning how to function socially is a process of raping innocent minds, he stated. The entire philosophy behind education, the brutal indoctrination of pristine minds so as to propagate some delusional system of cultural values. He referred to, quote, children who've been mind fucked by culture rapists, viewing the imposition of culture into children as a form of rape. He liked to take the word therapist and break it into the rapist. Now, Adam Lanza's therapist was actually raping him, so I think that's a little bit different as far as the connection there. But how else do you create, alters in a test subject? You have to. It's trauma based. I mean, that's legitimately how it is, facilitated, and the fracturing off of the neural pathways takes place. And so, therapists, he says, this is James Holmes. Therapists are secular priests who assert that they have some, quote, truth. And if your values deviate, then you are, quote, wrong. Hence, the rapist. They impose their values onto you through their mind fucking. What are the odds of both James Holmes and Adam Lanza referring to their therapist as the rapist, the mind rapist? It's crazy.
Do we know the name of the therapist?
With James?
Or either?
Yeah, I know that. I can't remember the name of Adam Lanza's therapist right now. One day, I'm going to do that.
I mean, I didn't know if they redacted that. Like, no, you cannot know that.
Right. Yeah, with it's Dr. Metzer, right? Who's the therapist? Dr. Lane Fenton, I think, is the therapist for the one that I don't appreciate is Dr. Lane Fenton. That's the one that connects to the Anschutz Anschutz Medical Campus and was the director of and was the psychiatrist there, who was apparently James Holmes' therapist leading up to the event and his dropping out. And apparently they even offered to give him free therapy after he dropped out and no longer was allowed to receive the therapy based on his insurance policy and just being a medical student there. They offered to continue to be his therapist, which I thought was strange. And then she comes out and kind of like she toes the establishment line and provides the official narrative, which is all just completely blown up when you read the psychological evaluation presented by Dr. Metzer. So that one specifically is the one of value. And I think it counteracts the falsehoods in the original Dr. Lynn Fenton's original claims, which I think were all entirely contrived in order to create this false narrative surrounding the event itself. And so, yeah, it was Dr. Lynn Fenton, I believe, was his therapist specifically, and definitely draws in, I think a direct line to how he could have been administered into this state of mind, with these DID split personality being a sort of applied, and so beyond the connection to the mind fucking and the mind rapists, they're essentially, it's very interesting because you have all these pages of his journal that are being shown on screens in the courtroom and all of this, right? They're attempting to kind of like at least facilitate this narrative that he himself had a schizophrenic break, and his psychiatrist Lynn Fenton, she claims she allegedly never saw the journal or the notebook, but he had apparently he mailed the notebook from a post office near the Century 16 Theater on a Thursday, and it arrived at the University of Colorado Medical School mailroom on the weekend and sat there until the next Monday. And Lynn Fenton claims she never saw it, right? Although it was directly to her. And so Holmes, it gets very interesting from here, because clearly you have the neuroscience DARPA connections, and Holmes is giving these elaborate presentations, on biological basis of psychiatric and neurological disorders. Like, what are we doing here? It sounds like he's studying mind control, and he was at one point, there was a claim that he was attempting to even find a way to put himself into a dissociative state, which is insane, especially when you consider the idea that he had said that he was overly concerned with the fact that he might have harmed a child, and he didn't believe that. If you read his character eval, it kind of is sort of is counteracting, because if you read through that, and it's very interesting, you have sort of Dr. Mentzer, who's correcting the record. He claims he discussed with Holmes issues relevant to the concepts of right and wrong in the context of a statement during the chat session that what he was thinking about was evil. He said he thought killing people at that time was evil because it was against the law. With regards to killing friends, it was not right because they were real people, in contrast to people he did not know who were described as just being, quote, crowd people. He also, by the way, he said that he tried to not make eye contact whatsoever. And he also, of course, wore the headphones at full volume in order to not hear any of the victim's screams, because he was concerned with how it would make him emotionally react. That was allegedly what the case was. And so, again, he's claiming that he thought killing people was wrong, obviously, because it was against the law. He didn't want to kill anyone he knew. And then he stated that children were worth more than other people because they have the rest of their life to live. He did not think it was right to kill children, even though they had more worth than adults. And he thought it was all right to kill adults, but could not explain his reasoning regarding this belief in the context of believing it was not right to kill children. So when asked why he had not previously killed people, since it would have increased his worth based on this conceptualization, he replied, because of fear of consequences, jail, prison, death penalty. Then he's asked what changed that led to his killing many people. And he stated that I lost the fear while I was in treatment with Fenton. All right. So there you go. While I was in treatment with Dr. Lynn Fenton, he lost the fear. Although Mr. Holmes had difficulty providing an accurate timeline, it was clear that he had lost the fear by at least early May 2012, which coincided with the period of time when he was experiencing what he called dysphoric mania. In response to how he felt about losing this fear, did it make him feel better since now he could have more self-worth? He replied, I just continued along. I was indifferent about it. He did not inform Dr. Fenton about his change because, quote, she would have locked me up. I would not be able to kill people, would not have been able to get out of this depression and increase my worth. It's a very strange, right, tie-in, and he claims he had difficulties answering the questions, right, from specifically this psychiatrist.
What was that doctor's name again?
Dr. Lynn Fenton.
Fenton. Okay.
Yeah. Like fentanyl, yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say that's odd.
Well, because it was something in his little. Because I did it like as you're talking, I'm looking. He claimed that he sought out somebody to talk to because he claimed that he was scared of the nail ghosts.
Oh, I know, right? That were so
would
right,
hear
peripheral.
Ghosts nailing into the walls.
That was when he was young, too.
Yeah, and so his provider or social worker suggested this woman.
Yeah, exactly. He was already in therapy with this woman at a very young age. Yeah, and so I find it very interesting that obviously he loses the fear while he's working with Dr. Fenton right just before, the events would be carried out. And and Holmes, man, I mean, it's very interesting because he's considered to be at the top of his class. I mean, he's so, like, if you look at even the reports coming from individuals like the chancellor, right, who gave the chancellor for UC Riverside, which he attended for a certain point in time, where he was the top of the top of his class, according to the chancellor, and so he even claims, I believe, that he really distinguished himself at this point, right? That Holmes graduated the top 1% of his class with a 3.949 GPA. And then he was described in UCR letters as a very effective group leader and a person who, quote, takes an active role in his education and brings a great amount of intellectual and emotional maturity into the classroom. So not at all does it seem like this guy is out of control in some sort of way where he's fracturing in his own mind at such a level where he would be, at least outwardly showing signs. I mean, that's not at all the case in terms of his academic background, and as far as anyone that seems to be a legitimate reference source, right? And then you see the tales of the NLP and the neuro-linguistic programming connections, and you have James Holmes linked to DARPA, the Salk Institute, and the DoD, where obviously Holmes, he has a past association with government-funded research projects, and so Holmes was one of 6 recipients of a National Institute of Health Neuroscience training grant at the University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus in Denver. So Holmes is a graduate of UC Riverside, right? And he gets his Bachelor of Science degree in neuroscience. So he drops out of the PhD neuroscience program at Anschutz in June, just before he commits the Century 16 movie theater shooting. And so he gives a presentation at Anschutz campus in May on the microDNA biomarkers in a class called Biological Basis of Psychiatric and Neurological Disorders, as I mentioned. Now, Holmes had, he apparently there are reports of an accomplice in the theater, right? And so they're discounted by Aurora police, but not at all if you listen to the actual call, as far as the police scanner. It's very strange. And then also there's there's a brief, hold on, let me pull it, because it's actually worthwhile. And I don't know how many people have really witnessed this video, but I'm telling you, it's like, this is hard not to just imagine as being the case, as far as the recesses in the background of the behind the actual theater screens. They have this major recess behind where legitimately you could have operatives who could launch smoke bombs from behind the actual viewing screen, which I found interesting and definitely worthwhile, because people were claiming that essentially that happened, and it was strategically timed at a moment in the movie where it's like 20 minutes in and there's a gun battle taking place, and there's all of these sounds of gunfire, and that there's like explosive devices going off. And so people were there was a brief window of time when the shooting began where people were concerned. They didn't know whether this was, and some of them even believed that it was like the theater itself were doing a special event because it was the Dark Knight theater premiere, and that they actually were throwing smoke bombs into the theater by design. They thought that that this was happening because they wanted to make the film more realistic, which I thought was hilarious that you had people actually under that impression. But
and this was the film with Heath Ledger in it, right?
This one was The Dark Knight Rises, I think, right? Because it was 2012, I think. So I think that it was actually the one with Bane, right?
Okay, all right.
Yeah. But either
Christian
way,
Bale. Well, I'm pretty sure
with,
was that the movie where he thanked Satan on stage?
Ooh, I don't remember
for
now.
his award.
I don't remember now, but I definitely remember.
You know what I'm talking about?
No, actually, holy
Christian
shit.
Bale's at like the Golden Globes or the Oscars, and he's like, "I want to thank Satan, my Lord and Savior Satan." It's like, whoa, what the fuck,
I did not realize that.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely know. You remember in that movie, they perform a domestic bombing, and it turns into, like, obviously they blow up the football stadium right? That major football stadium, and they have like this major domestic bombing attack. And I just thought it was interesting because it definitely mirrors certain things that were happening in 2012, let's just say, right? And I find that interesting. But this is crazy because it's a witness who was in the theater that day, and I find it very strange that people, this has very much been memory hold over the course of time. But
what did you feel when you saw the picture of that guy in court today, Corbin, James Holmes?
Honestly, as soon as I was watching the trial on CNN today, I felt completely numb. I felt no emotion whatsoever when I was looking at the face of the gunman.
Did he look dangerous to you? Did he remind you of what you saw in the theater?
Honestly, looking at his face right now, no, he looked like an average person that you would see probably at a mall or at anywhere common. You would not put two and two together if you saw that person and if you were there that night. You would never know.
Okay, compare him to what you saw, the gentleman you saw, or the two gentlemen, whatever you saw. Compare him to what you saw in the theater the night that that everything went horribly.
The night in the theater, as soon as the door swung open and the person dressed all in black walked into the theater, this person had a stroll like he knew what was going on, like he knew what was supposed to happen, like it was supposed to be a walk in the park, and that he was going to have a good time. That's what it looked like.
Is there any way you can connect the two? Could you identify him as that guy, the one who killed all the 12 people and injured or wounded so many others, dozens of others?
I couldn't have identified him because the gunman was dressed all in black. You could not see anything. The only thing that was available to see was only his eyes.
No red hair.
I gotta be careful about presumption of innocence, even in a case that gets so graphic as this. Let me go back quickly to Corbin Dates. Was there one or two people involved in this? I've heard that you believe there might have been two, not just one.
I couldn't speculate, but the way from what I saw before the gunman walking in acted out, it seemed like there was two. But I couldn't speculate because I did not know what happened after that door had shut before it swung back open.
I think you told one of our producers that the person you saw going out of the theater to get and come back, whoever came back in, the one who went out had a goatee.
Yes. That's correct, yeah. Prior to the movie even starting, when I came and got my seat at the theater, a guy walked in into the auditorium after me, sat into the very first right row, and got a phone call. Took his phone call towards the emergency exit, not the lobby, and had his foot propped open by the door. It seemed like he was making gestures of trying to find somebody or trying to have somebody come to his location to where he currently was. After that, I had already stepped out of the auditorium to bring my friend in, and when we came back, the movie was just starting, lights were dimming, and that door seemed closed.
And you testified to all this in court?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Corbin Dates. I'm glad you got through it, fella. And Dr. Michael.
That's so crazy, right? Like,
yeah,
I think.
Pull up. Sorry, I was gonna say if you want to see that real fast.
Hey, I actually can I go to the bathroom real quick? I'll be right back.
Yeah. When you get back, we'll probably still have to wrap it up too.
Okay, sounds good, brother.
There we go. There we go.
All right. Can y'all hear it?
There, Adam. He said, I've got to find somebody who can be absolutely charisma free and reviled by everybody. So he went, that's got to be Bale. Thank you to Satan for giving me inspiration on how to play this role.
Just straight up with it.
His last name is Bale.
I wonder what role that was. Let me.
Yeah.
Dick Cheney. Okay. Well, maybe that makes more sense.
That does make sense.
Yeah.
I think, has that been explored a lot, their fathers? And I had heard that a long time ago, especially when
That's funny.
the Aurora thing came up. The two things that and of course Columbine fell, not Columbine, the Aurora shooting, the Aurora shooting kind of fell off. You get so into and you start deep diving, and then of course, as it happens, there's another thing that happens and you start deep diving into that, and so you leave. Nick knows this very intimately with me, is that I'll leave these projects open, right? Like 30-some pages in, and I'm like, I have this great topic. It's like 35 pages worth. And I was like, wait, I don't feel like I'm finished. And so let me go and start.
It's like literally, let's just put it in order.
And another 35 pages. And I was like, no, but I'm not done. So yeah. So like I'm running out of like Google Drive memory. But that the father, the connection with the fathers, and then I don't think anybody really harped too much on the fact that, like with Columbine, that they were working at that pizza place,
Oh yeah.
the Blackjack pizza place, and that's
Mhm.
where they conspired, and that's where they planned it all out.
Domestic
And
Gladio, I'm telling you.
about that.
So weird how you had the queen with Manchurian, and now you got a Jack.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Oh my God. Yeah. How about
So
that?
then that what's it called? That pizza place,
One-eyed Jacks.
you look at some of their donations or whatever, has
Mhm.
sent me to the Aurora medical facility as donation.
Oh my God. That's amazing. Tell me
Yeah.
that. What was the name? What's the name of that pizza joint again? I'm trying to
Blackjack.
Sweet. I know this was definitely a domestic Gladio unit that helped facilitate Columbine, no doubt in my mind.
Yep.
And I think that it was all sort of pre-planned in that area, like at that specific location, because I think that this was sort of like a paramilitary operation in a way, which is this goes back to what's it called? I always forget the first part of the actual name of the book, but it's called From PSYOP to Mind War, The Psychology of Victory, right? By co-authored not only by Major General Paul Vallely, but also, who was the co-author? Lieutenant Colonel of Military Intelligence Michael Aquino, PSYOP Research and Analysis Team Leader.
What another thing, now I'm glad you said that, Michael Aquino, that what's interesting with Columbine, remember when it happened? Well, I was alive at that time. I don't know if y'all were. Y'all were? I don't know. I feel
No.
I was.
Well, maybe I was alive.
Yeah,
I was a little kid.
Okay, so when Columbine happened, immediately, I believe it was Bill O'Reilly that interviewed Marilyn Manson and asked him what he thought of it.
Oh, I remember that.
And he gives this like obviously off the wall cuff type response, typical of his character, right?
Right.
But I wondered why they never interviewed Trent Reznor, because it was his song that was inspirational to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yet
that would make
it was
sense.
like media silence on Trent Reznor. Why?
Man,
it's real weird you're bringing this up, because we were watching Twin Peaks on Patreon last night, and
and then you have the
Nine Inch Nails played.
association with Marilyn Manson and Michael Aquino.
Right.
Because Marilyn Manson, if you remember, the whole Mickey Mouse, the whole he kind of knew the backstory of a lot of things and kind of alluded to some stuff. Yeah.
I'm telling you, I think Michael Aquino ran the Monarch Boys, no doubt in my mind, and I think that's how much of this playbook was sophisticated over time. Was his sort of direct involvement with the mind control aspect, but also the homosexual pedophilia, these specific expertise that he was relying upon as a sociopathic pedophile, right? To essentially, I think I'm not entirely sure if the sex trumps the power, like honestly, I think it's the idea of this is how you sort of implement this dark magic. I mean, it truly seems like that is what's taking place. I mean, what did they say in The Manchurian Candidate? He said, their magic is more powerful than my magic. And I thought it was very interesting that Frank Sinatra said that about, he thought he could he thought he could break Raymond out of his programming if he utilized the same technique that they used to provide the layers of programming for him to essentially, and what did they do? They relied upon, obviously, the relationship with his mother, which I didn't realize in the book. In the book, it's separate from the film. It was far more as far as just disturbing in terms of the connection to Raymond and his mother. it's basically like this sort of family dynamic of the pedophile factor, right? Where this recurring abuse is recycled throughout generations, and essentially you sacrifice your own child. And that's basically what I've seen so very often in the context of these networks, especially
Again,
child
the
exploitation.
Abrahamic foundation.
Absolutely. And by the way, Lincoln is like so many different symbols of Lincoln, that you see in the Manchurian Candidate, right? And I think that, and they constantly have like the McCarthy type character that's the stepfather, that's just a moron, being completely like, sort of led by the nose by the Queen of Diamonds, right? The Red Queen, and Angela Lansbury just no, what have I told you about thinking? Like she legitimately calls him an idiot, and he's like, will you please just give me the actual number of communist spies that are in the government? He's like, because I look really stupid flip-flopping on the numbers every day, right, in public. And it's just so crazy to see how they legitimately just distort and manipulate even public perception. Because what does Raymond do? Raymond, to make sure his programming's still intact, they run an op, they run an experiment. All right, Raymond, we're going to have you kill someone, right? Just to make sure that he's still an active tool in this context before they go green light. And so they have him. What does he do? He goes and he legitimately he targets this. It was so strange because it was actually his boss who was like running the publication, the media publication at the time, right? So he strategically takes over this prominent media publication after eliminating his boss, right? And this is again eliminating a dissenting voice, of course, because this is a major media publication that is in opposition politically to that of Raymond's mother. Right, because if you remember when Raymond took the job at this PR or this media company, he said he had a lot of things in common with this individual who ran the media corporation. And his mother's like calls him a communist, and basically they claim like obviously anyone who disagrees with Raymond's mother is a communist, right? And that's essentially what they claim. But so then he eliminates them and eliminates his boss, and then takes over the media company while he's already a strategic asset in place. And to me, it remains, a perfect example of how they could just, again, this is you're trained to kill, but it's a trigger phrase necessary, and you have layers of programming. Oh my God. Yeah, I'm still going, man. I'm sorry. I can stop anytime. You guys just tell me, honestly.
One day, Nick is going to do a marathon podcast where it just goes all day.
I'm sorry, Nick.
I made it 9 hours.
This is great.
Yeah. I did 9 hours on my 1-year anniversary. That was, I don't think I can do more than 9 hours on a stream. Man. It was a crazy stream.
Intense, bro. My God. But yeah, I you guys already know I'm usually I enjoy going schizo, but it's usually better if I have a priority subject in mind of what I specifically need to address. I think I do a better job, and I think also it's more palatable to the audience. Clearly, I'm not dropping names and not unexplained names and things of that nature. So I apologize for that. But
no, this was great. No,
yeah, no, great.
It's a perfect format for the Occult Rejects.
It was great.
Awesome, man.
We're all about long shows, so thank you. I would honestly, I would really love to get you back on again. And there was something I wanted to get into, kind of more with Peter Thiel and assassins and trannies, but that could have been a whole other hour. You know what I'm saying? So, and Stanford, which is constantly coming up now with people who are shooting.
Absolutely.
So I would like to get into that. So maybe we'll schedule something in a few more weeks and chop that up. But we're gonna wrap it up now. Jules has got to go, and I'm sure you're gonna.
Oh, my kids are inevitable. It's something that soon I can't stop, and they will be infiltrating the garage. So,
Jules.
But yeah, so we'll wrap it up here. I think.
Awesome. Sounds good. I miss you, Jules. We need to do something again soon. Honestly,
I miss you too, buddy. We will.
Hell yeah.
Do I need to do my plugs?
Yeah, go for
plugs? It. Guys, this was a banger of an episode. I always, whenever Austin comes on, you can go check out. He's been on my show. Probably him and Nephilim Death Squad. They're tied at like who's been on my show the most.
Hell yeah.
Or who I've done shows with as far as other podcasts. I don't know. There's a lot of people, but you can go check them out on my channel. Always a great conversation. I'm on Rumble, YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify. Y'all go over there, find me. X at Greypilled Pod, Patreon. We're doing a lot of cool stuff over there. Patreon.com/Greypilled Podcast. Just this morning went over part 2, the adepts in the Western esoteric traditions. Every Saturday, esoteric book review. Also, my wife, if y'all been watching my show for about a year now or so, you know that my wife started a podcast back this last year. She set one up, didn't really get going until now. She just recorded a few episodes for the Babylon podcast that she just edited, be dropping them this week. And so I'll drop the links for those on Twitter when she drops them. And yeah, so y'all look out for that. And supposed to have another show later today, but I don't know. Depends.
It's like Nick
could
just
be tomorrow.
For the last 3 hours. Can't do it.
Yeah. No, we did about a 3-hour show this morning and another 3-hour show. So I don't know. I may go lay down with my kids or something, or I don't know, may go outside. I think it's nice outside. So, but no, this was a great show. And yeah, guys, y'all tune in next time to the Occult Rejects.
Hell yeah. Thank you very much, man. I'm glad you made it. Really wanted to get you on here with us. We got Lisa. What is going on, Lisa? How are you?
Thank you for allowing me to step in very late.
Oh yeah.
I am so grateful. Austin, again, this is the second time I've been on while you've been on, and you are a well of knowledge. I mean, definitely, it would be like we're all sitting around, just shooting the shit, and it would go into like 6 or 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. Just and there's still so much more to discuss. So I am very, very grateful that I got to be on with y'all again. Jules, always, it's great to chop it up with you guys. And Nick, thank you for inviting me. And
of course. Always love you.
Likewise, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
And Austin, please let everybody know where they can find all your amazing work.
Man, thank you guys so much. And thank you for all the kind words. It means so much to me. Honestly, it does. I get a little emotional when I think about it, because it's just like, man, this is something I dreamed of, just being able to have conversations like this. Like I was so fucking lonely and isolated in my ideas for so long. And I felt like, just like the ultimate misfit. Like I couldn't engage at a level with anyone where I felt safe. You know what I mean? Like I felt like I could have this conversation and not wander into that territory that is seemingly off limits. So very often in the conscious or subconscious minds of the average person. And so always when I get the chance, it means everything to me. So I have nothing but love and respect for all three of you. And people, I feel like at this point I've talked to you guys enough to where I feel like we're legitimate friends. So I just want to say that.
I'm having you on, man, for real.
Awesome. I take it seriously. And as far as just like I'm a loyal person. I try to be as much as possible. And so I like, I call people my brother and stuff like that. I mean that, when I say it, and I honestly do. So you guys are my misfit family members, and I absolutely love that. And so thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And we just, more conversations like this gives me hope. So I love you all for real.
Well, no, love you, brother. I'm glad you came on, man. Like I said, we would definitely have more conversations, and we'd love to get you on a few more weeks whenever we're both available. We'll definitely have a lot more topics and conversations, my man. I'm sure.
Awesome, brother.
Yeah,
sounds good to me.
We've only just begun really in this game, I think, that we're playing. So
right.
Sure we'll be around for a while. But again, thank you everybody who showed up. Lisa, thank you so much. I know you have a busy day and life going on. I really appreciate you making it. Jules, again, thank you. We did a show this morning. Jumped on a half hour later to do another one with me. I appreciate it. And Austin, same. Absolutely. As well. Love you here. And everybody in the chat, that's what's up. We had everybody was there from the beginning to end. Tons of people on everybody's channels. I was trying to throw your comments up
today.
Yeah. So thank you all. I really appreciate it. That's why I try to go live. I really like seeing the chat and everything. I appreciate you all. And that is the end of another Occult Rejects. And until the next one, everybody be well. Later.